It's one of those days when everything in your life breaks down. A boy named Taeho heard that his brother was leaving. He asked his brother if he could say no and not go. The brother asked Taeho what he was talking about. Taeho replied that he had heard that the Murima Alliance had summoned him. Also, Cheonhajeil said that brother is going to war. Don't people die in war? The brother couldn't stand it, and laughed, saying that their Taeho has grown so much, even worried about his big brother. Don't let Taeho worry. They don't trust a simpleton like him to do anything serious. They'll probably make him a watchman or something, and if Taeho is still worried, they can make a promise to each other. His brother promises him to return unharmed, so Taeho should be brave and wait for him. Taeho was thinking very hard at this time. But in a second he came to his senses, and said with a smile that he promised his brother. Crossing his little fingers like brothers, Taeho said that he was asking his brother to make sure he comes back. The brother replied that he promises. At the moment of the battle, Guy is left alone in the battlefield. Because of his anger, he shouts at Taeho at the top of his voice to forgive him. The boy hesitated and saw that it seemed he would not return. But across from him stood the old man who had fought them. The old man said that about 30 years ago, he destroyed the southern Shaolin in Fujian. He left no stone unturned. It was as if nothing had happened. And so the old man showed the object and said he had found it there. And he couldn't understand how this insignificant ancient box had stood up to the strongest blow of his blood wave without a scratch. And ever since, he's been interested in this invulnerable lock thing. But who would have thought the little man would surprise him again? This old man was the head of the Demon Alliance, the invincible Blood Emperor. The guy was pondering at this moment, what kind of absurd chi suppression was this? But the demon head immediately used his abilities from afar, and began to suppress the guy. The guy immediately felt the pain, and realized that it was telekinesis. The demon head said that although his knowledge was very different from the highest form of skill, and the strike was quite simple, but still the kid survived. It was amazing to him, the guy was able to find a fleeting gap in his attacks. What an incredible talent. The demon head said he would be brief. Let Guy become his human. But Guy at this moment was suffering from severe pain of suppression, and only screamed. The head demon explained to the boy that new opportunities awaited him if he joined him, or death if he refuses. And in such cases he is impatient. Let him choose wisely. The boy shouted through the pain that he would never betray his teacher. Let him just kill him. The demon head couldn't let this guy go, and through agony and suffering, tossed the guy aside. The demon said it was true. It's not just the fighting skills. And he really likes the guy's spirit. However, the demon didn't let go of him like that, and immediately launched an attack piercing his arm through his chest, and the guy was left to bleed out. The demon was completely covered in blood and told the boy one last time that he hated rejection, and let him know that he had the honor of falling at his hands. The boy thought at that moment, who would have thought that his death would be so miserable? And then he turned to his younger brother Taeho. When he closed his eyes he went into a dark dimension. But in a moment he was frightened and immediately had to open his eyes. The guy started to look around and wondered where he had gotten to. When he examined his body, he saw that there were no scars or cuts on it. But someone suddenly addressed him as the chosen one, and said that he had been blessed, and so he would give him everything he had. The guy in front of him saw a very bright light, and asked the voices who he was. The object that was in the demon's hands began to open and glow. The demon saw the object begin to unfold, and didn't realize what was even happening. This light was directed at the guy and lifted him into the air. Demon marveled with every second he lived and asked how was this possible? But the object was headed for the guy. That demon couldn't hold it back. The demon adamantly refused to give it back and said that he had tried everything to get her. But someone like him, he would have to destroy it. The old man couldn't hold onto the object, and he pulled it with him into the guy's body. The object completely absorbed this demon behind it. In the end, an explosion occurred after this situation. Years passed, and the fierceness of the battle grew more and more intense. The war continued, mountains of corpses grew, and blood flowed in rivers. But suddenly, the unexpected happened. The world's greatest head of the Demon Union, the invincible Bloody Emperor, was killed. Doubt swept across the Murim, but the identity of the mysterious assassin remained unknown. And when the Murim Alliance declared an end to the war, the Demon Alliance collapsed. 2 years after the end of the war, the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy was formed in Yeonjo County, Gansu Province, but it wasn't that simple. On this day, strangers were beating up a student. But a guy named Jong Taeho, the 5th student of the Dragon and Tiger Academy, the second son of the head of the academy Jong Jewon, shouted to the elder. The stranger told the guy that he seriously doesn't listen when they talk nice to him, right? These thugs were called the Half-Price Gang. It was the head of a gang of thugs named Don Gumken. Don told the guy that he owed them money a long time ago, and he still hadn't given it back. The second disciple of Dragon and Tiger Academy, Kang Won-hen, replied that they had only borrowed 5 gold bars. And they had returned them at least 20, what more do they want? Dog Gumken replied so that Kang heard him carefully. If he thought it was unfair, he should have paid on time. Kang at this time considered them for lowly scum. And even after taking away all their money, they still continue. All this is happening because they took money from them. But they can't leave a teacher in trouble. And then Kang told them to give him a week. Don started to smile and asked surprised, a week? The guy holding Taehan was telling Don to bring him here and put him on the ground. Taehan saw that Kang wasn't doing well and yelled at him to leave nicely. And then Kang called them bastards and asked what they were doing to them. In a moment of hearing Kang tell them to stop, he was immediately punched in the face by Dan's fist. Dan called him bad words and asked Kang what he thought he was going to get for a week just by asking. Dan asked his boyfriend if he had put Junior down. The boyfriend replied that it was already done. Dan replied that he would honor Kang's request. But it wouldn't be for free. He would take that younger guy's hand. And then Kang realized it wasn't going to be that easy. He immediately threw himself at Dan's feet and begged him to forgive him. And told him he was wrong. He'd pay up early. Let Dan give him 2 days. He'll get all the money they need somehow. When Dan heard those words, he immediately kicked him and said he was disgusted to hear him say that. Kang thinks for a moment, and tells Dan to take his hand then. He asks him if Dan would only spare him, and Kang has to get the money. He turned to his men, and told them to make sure there would be one even cut. The guy holding the sword was telling Taehan to keep still, or he might cut off his head by mistake. Taehan didn't want his arm to be cut off and yelled for them to stop. Kang was also very disappointed that he couldn't save his youngest from such a fate. At times like this, if only the older brother were alive, Taehan thought. And then Kang shouted to his older brother, and out of nowhere someone threw a knife straight at the bandit's sword. The bandit's sword changed trajectory and failed to sever the boy's arm. He immediately asked, "Who's that there?" And then a guy came out to meet them and said that he had been away for a long time. But he didn't think that the small county of Yeonjo would ask who he was. Kang thought for a moment, hearing his voice, that it sounded very familiar to him. The guy took off his hat and replied that he was the older brother of those guys. The guys saw his face and were happy in a moment. Dan asked, "Was there anyone like that here?" The boy answered the head that there was the oldest student. He had disappeared 7 years ago during the Great Ominous War. It was rumored that he died during a battle with the Murima Alliance, but apparently he survived. The head of the bandits started talking about the guy when he saw him disappear right in front of his eyes. The guy came up to Taeho and told him to forgive him. And it looks like he was a little late. The bandits couldn't figure out when he managed to disappear from their sight. The boy asked Taehan if he had hurt himself anywhere. Taehyung replied that he was fine. Kang heard this and turned to his older brother, saying that he had hurt himself. Dan thought it was a martial artist. It can't be. Even if it's related to the Murim Alliance, but just the teachings of a village academy. Dan called the guy a bastard and said that he dared to pull cheap tricks. The guy replied that the mess they had made in this sacred academy wasn't enough, so they still dared to wound their precious little brother? Kang told his older brother that it wasn't the younger brother who was wounded, but him, the other one. The guy told them not to think they would get away with impunity. Dan immediately sensed that this guy was consumed with the desire to kill. Dan realized it was all going to one thing and asked his men what they were doing. Have them capture him immediately. When the warriors heard this order, they all came at him together. But the boy stood still and waited for the moment. But the guy turned out to be 100 times stronger than them, and at the point he took a couple steps forward and the bandits all missed. The bandits were all surprised that they all missed together, and the guy was behind them. And in a moment their heads disappeared from their bodies. The guys were wondering what the hell happened just now. I mean, It's not possible. The guy walked up to Dan and said he could kill him right now. And then Dan's hands trembled in the moment. But the guy informed Dan that he didn't want to desecrate a sacred place. Now he'll spare it, but it won't be for free. He would take the bandit's arm from him. The guy didn't question him, and in a moment performed his technique, and cut off his arm. The boy walked over to the younger man and began to look him over. He looked at Taehan, and realized how much he missed him. Kang walked up to his older brother and apologized. The boy told the second brother that he was relieved that their younger brother was not seriously injured. The other brother realized that he was the one who was hurt. And he should be pitied, not the younger brother. After all, he was the one who got a lot of abrasions. The boy went straight afterward to his teacher, who was very sick. He immediately checked his pulse. The guy checked his body and immediately realized that his teacher had internal injuries. The guy thought that whoever did this was at least a first-class warrior. It was the head of the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy, Cheonhajeil. The guy thought at that moment, who dared to do such a thing to the teacher? The guy left the teacher to rest and left the room. But then the academy's third Dragon and Tiger disciple Yang ran up to him saying that it was true, he had returned to them alive. Ian pounced on him with a hug and asked him what took him so long. The guy called him stupid and said his big brother is back. Isn't he happy? Why is he roaring? The boy started looking around and asked, Jana, where is the fourth brother? And then the guys started flipping out and saying what if honestly. The guy got angry and asked, what's the hesitation? The boy turned to Taeho saying he was Taran's younger brother. Let him give an open answer to the question posed. Taeho was surprised and asked his brother why he was asking him. Taeho stepped forward and replied that brother Taran had joined the guard to earn money for treatment. 6 months ago, he suddenly lost contact with him. They even sent people to find out where he was, but they found no trace of him. The guy said it's been 7 years. The last time he'd been home was 7 long years ago. Not only was there a bunch of loan sharks hanging around their academy, and their teacher is down with internal injuries, and the fourth brother is missing. The boy got angry and asked what the hell had happened during his absence. Taeho saw that their older brother was furious. 3 years ago, a strange man visited the academy. They had never seen him before. He demanded a duel with the teacher. Of course, the teacher politely refused. However, judging from the main gate of the academy, that bastard was picking fights with ordinary students, and in the end, it turned out that they weren't the only ones who were his victims. The head of the 5 Dragons Academy was killed, the head of Gansu was maimed and forced to close the school. The martial arts academies were closing down one after another, so Yeongjeo County became the center of a cluster of scum. As expected, they began to meddle in the academy's affairs. They needed to get medicine for a teacher, so they went into debt. But the place where they got the money turned out to be run by a semi-transparent gang. The boy listened to their stories and realized in his head that there was something fishy going on. A vagrant walking around the traditional martial arts academy is asking for a fight. And right after that, the gang-protected scammers show up and offer money at just the right moment. The scoundrels have only one goal in mind. He said they want to absorb Yeongjeo County. Guy stood up and told the rest of the brothers to all get ready. Kang asked his older brother what he was talking about. The guy said it doesn't matter if these bastards want to expand their influence. They're gonna beat that scum half to death. After all, how dare they touch the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy? That will never happen. At this time in the base of the translucent gang, the leader was telling Dan that he was a useless moron. The head sent him to get their money and he left his hand there instead? The head of the translucent gang named Ban Gi asked, what would people think now? Dan realized his oversight and apologized to the head. Ben asked him who he was. How dare he mess with the great translucent gang? Dan replied that about that, he called himself the first student of the Dragon and Tiger Academy. Ben heard this, surprised, and asked, a martial academy? It's not even a sect, just an academy? Ben thought for a moment, and remembered where he had heard that name. It felt strange, like he shouldn't have forgotten it. He had definitely heard the name before. A martial academy that a native of the wilderness like him should remember. And then Bun was repeating it, and in front of his eyes he saw that guy and told Dan not to tell him. But then Guy came to them himself and walked in so beautifully that the door flew out the other way and the guard couldn't even handle it. And then a guy came in and said that he was wondering how this infamous Ban Gi of the translucent gang turned out to have their ugly man Ban Zhou change his name. Right? Ban was surprised at this situation and said that it was Hek Muzang in front of him. Hek asked Ban, had he forgotten his promise from 10 years ago? Hek said that if he ever set foot on Cheonhajeil land again, he would make him a eunuch. The guards lost their temper and asked them who they thought they were. Did they all want to die? Hek told his boys to just enjoy the show today. After all, there's a lot to learn from the side too. Hek saw the crowd of bandits pounce on him after saying those words. He was just waiting for the right time to attack. The guys immediately started yelling at their older brother to leave. After that, he saw Hek start throwing everyone to the left and right. The guys had already told Big Brother that they couldn't watch this. It was so cruel. But how did he get so strong? Dan stepped aside at this point and saw the others completely broken, and he was glad his arm had just been chopped off. Hek saw that he had scattered everyone and asked who else wanted to be a eunuch. Let them not linger and attack. Ben didn't take any chances and ordered his men to move back. He called Hek useless trash and said who knew he'd end up having to go out on his own. Ben turned to Hek and said that he had gotten stronger again in the time they had not seen each other. As expected from his old doctor. But does Hek know that he has never stopped thinking for a day about what happened 10 years ago? The destruction and fear it showed him that day and that hellish pain. And then Ban clenched his fist and said that's why today. He fell to his knees and asked Hek for forgiveness. Everyone was surprised at such an event that was now taking place. Ben said that he asked him just not to make him a eunuch. Hek replied that it was original. He was going to beat him up and make him a eunuch right before he died. But how touching to watch him kneel before his subordinates. And Hek threw away his sword and said he was giving him a chance. Ben got excited and asked, "Is that true?" Hek replied that he had two choices. Does he want to get the crap beaten out of him, or would he prefer to become a eunuch? At this point, Ben responded that Hek should beat him up. Hek threw him a paper and told him to sign. Ben was completely beaten up and couldn't see anything because of his swollen eyes. Asked what it was. Hek replied that it said he would return the 150 gold bars he had illegally taken from them. Buck was surprised and asked, 150 gold bars? They took 20, what kind of robbery is that? But then Hek hit him over the head again. Hek replied that considering he had scared the students of their academy, maybe they should demand 300 from him. Ben should be grateful to him for offering him repentance. Ben understood and thanked him. Hek asked him why. He hadn't done anything yet after all. Ben started to insult him in his head and turned away to the side. Hek asked him what he was doing. Ben replied that he didn't know what Hek was talking about. Hek responded by telling him to bring the money quickly. Ben was surprised and asked, right now? They need to check their supplies first. Hek clenched his fist and asked him what he said. Ben started yelling at his own and asking what they were doing. Have them bring them the money immediately. On the way home, Taran cheered and told his big brother that he was amazing. He had dealt with 30 by himself. Hek replied that they had a numerical advantage, but they don't even reach the 3rd rank. There are stronger people outside the Murim. Taran said it's all the same, to him Big Brother is amazing. And then Hek was surprised by his answer. Hek turned to Brother Kong and said that he didn't look good. Is there something bothering him? Kong thought for a moment, and replied that behind the translucent gang is a famous group of great power. And he is afraid that there will be consequences after their actions today. Hek replied to Kong not to worry, he already had a plan. Kong got excited and said that's great. Hek said it was simple. If a strong enemy threatens him, he must be stronger than him. After all, strength decides everything. Kong told his older brother that he knew he was strong, but how was he going to handle them alone? They could have hundreds of masters. Just then, Hek replied that it wasn't about him. Kong began to train under the guidance of his older brother. Hek said that no matter how strong he was, if they attacked in his absence, it would be the end for the academy, and they should be able to defend the academy on their own. In other words, they should be stronger. We need to keep practicing, gain experience in combat. By practicing, they will quickly improve their skills. They will learn and understand how to use weapons and develop their fighting instincts. Hek started fighting them and defeating them in 1 and 2. He said that without practice, in real combat, the body would stiffen and they wouldn't be able to move. In the end, they won't be able to apply what they've learned, and they'll end up dying on the battlefield as weaklings. Kang was startled at this moment, and was very much surprised that Hek had broken through the wall with his wooden sword. Hek defeated one and told the next one to come up. The boys asked him if it was too fast. Let Big Brother give them a second, and then Hek said that the last one would go one more lap. Immediately they were frightened and shouted which one of them would go first. Toward the end of the day, Hek put his swords on the shelf and said they had done a good job. It was his first day. He thought it would be best to start with some light training, and from tomorrow he would take them all seriously, let them have a good night's rest. The guys were all so exhausted they couldn't even stand up. They also heard that it was a light workout, and he'll do some serious training for them tomorrow. The guy said that during the academy, the training noticed that Big Brother had become incredibly strong. Taeho asked his brothers, had he been like this from the beginning? Kang replied that he was famous for his strength, but it was different now. There was a time 10 years ago when he single-handedly interrupted 20 swordsmen, but was badly wounded and nearly died. And it was far from a one-sided fight like today. Daeho said that today he didn't even break a sweat, let alone get hurt. Kang thought for a moment, and replied that it was strange. Was he really learning some secret technique? Hek didn't go chilling like everyone else and decided to head over to the teacher and start healing him. Hek used his powers to realize his early assumptions. Deep internal injuries without proper treatment had weakened his organs. If the teacher had been weaker, he would have died on the spot. Thanks to their sincere concern, he managed to survive. But now Hek realized that the teacher had reached his limit. He needed immediate treatment. Hek immediately directed his energy at the teacher with 2 fingers. The energy of the flow was so great that the teacher immediately felt the pain that was inside his body. The teacher immediately spat out from this flow of blood from his body. Hek saw this and realized that this was a very good thing. They got rid of the blood clots, and now the real treatment begins. After all, the teacher's meridians are damaged. It takes time to gently introduce your chi. Hek unfolded his chi into a cocoon and sent a stream of energy and power into the teacher's body. Hek felt in a moment that the teacher's inner chi was resisting too much, and he was momentarily losing control. Hek realized that he wasn't going to let that happen. But why was his body rejecting his chi? If it continued like this, the teacher wouldn't be able to stand it. Hek said that there was nothing he could do. It would be safer to end things quickly. And now he must subdue his inner chi and clear the meridians. The power was so great that Hek wondered what all at once needed to be done. At night at this time, the house was glowing with chi energy. After that, the teacher came to his senses and slowly opened his eyes. While Hek stood there looking at him, Hek asked the teacher, "Is he awake?" The teacher got so excited and asked if he could see Hek. The teacher couldn't believe his eyes and asked that it was Hek in front of him. Hek bowed and replied that he was greeting the teacher. He says he is a student of Hek Muzang and finally returns. He was late and asked the teacher to scold him. The teacher held out his hand and told him to come over. Hek immediately came up at his teacher's command. The teacher began to stroke him and feel his presence. He told Hek that he had done well. He thanked him for coming back safely. Hek couldn't hold back his tears after saying that and thanked his teacher. At this time in the Great Force grouping, an outsider leader named Meng asked the servant, "What did he say? Was the translucent gang robbed?" Meng asked why the Dragon and Tiger Academy is still open. Local Commander Oh Chisholm replied that they can't openly deal with them because they are affiliated with the Murim Alliance. He injured the Academy head himself under the pretext of a duel. But it seems that the Academy's senior disciple Hek had returned. Meng asked surprised, "Senior apprentice? So he's not an Academy teacher?" Oh replied that they say he was the one who beat up all the members of the translucent gang. Meng asked Oh that he wanted to turn a blind eye? He must realize, you can't let someone who stole from them live. Meng ordered Oh to send Iron Demon Commander Gawk to take care of him, have them use the old method, and challenge him to a duel. When this scumbag dies, have him send the translucent gang to get rid of the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. Oh replied that he understood. Men said to make sure that the Murim Alliance would have no reason to intervene. Men told Hek that was stupid. He had barely survived the Great Evil War. He shouldn't have come back to die in vain. But things happened so fast that several of Meng's men attacked the clan. But things didn't go as they planned. Heck asked him, "Is he the leader of the local rascals?" The enemy replied to the guy, "How dare he? Does he think he can get away with it? Does he know who is behind him?" Heck replied to give them a message from him. Cheonhajeil County under the jurisdiction of the Dragon and Tiger Martial Academy. If they went to them again, something unfortunate would happen. The next day in the tavern a man asked his friend if he had heard the latest rumors. The man replied that last night those scoundrels had been defeated. The guy asked in surprise that it was those scoundrels. The man replied that it looked like the Dragon and Tiger Battle Academy had tried their best again. Apparently, their leader had become crippled. The guy was surprised and said that not too long ago, they had driven out a translucent gang. They only have 5 masters, right? I'm sure those scum have at least 50. The man replied that Master Heck had returned. Even from long ago, he was known for his incredible fighting abilities. The guy replied that it was really encouraging. So many people have already been hurt by these scumbags. The man interrupted his friend and said that wasn't all. It looks like they gave the money to the victims of those scoundrels' extortion. And then the guy jumped up and asked the man, why didn't he say so right away? Does he know how much they took from him? The man was startled at the sound of his voice and replied that he was going to tell him about it. The guy immediately ran out from behind the steel and shouted for the Dragon Academy and the tiger to wait for him. There's another victim. The last thing the man did was tell him to wait. Really, what a temper! It seems that peace has finally returned to Cheonhajeil County. In front of the clan at this moment, a large number of people had gathered and everyone was complaining that they had been stolen. People were asking them to at least give them half. The guys told them to calm down and wait a bit. Taran was very surprised and wondered what to do. They can't control them. Soon they would all be breaking into the clan by now. But then Heck came in and put his hand on his brother's shoulder. Taran was surprised to see the older student, and then Heck shouted in his menacing voice that he was asking everyone to calm down. In a moment, the people all fell silent, and there was silence in the neighborhood. Taran was surprised and thought it was cool. His brother had spoken softly, and they could hear him through the noise. Heck said he was well aware that they had all suffered at the hands of those scumbags. They undermined their business and labor, robbed them, demanded protection fees, and because of the threats, they've all gotten into massive debt. He's sure that many of them have gotten into debt, and yet he's Heck Muzang back. He will make sure that they will never be harmed by such evil people again. He would protect Cheonhajeil and bring back the old days when they lived in peace. Therefore, he asks them, take away all sorrows and listen to their diligent disciples. If all wait their turn and come out one by one, they will try to repay them properly. And then someone in the crowd shouted, shame on them. The people turned around and saw the Elder O. Elder O said they helped them without any payment, and they made such a fuss. And he's really sorry, Hen. After all, he was the only one who had made all this possible. I should have started with this. Heck replied that such was their job, and everyone was surprised at his words. O said to Mujan. Heck smiled and asked the Elder O to speak. Elder O smiled and replied that it looked like he was first in line. He immediately began to smile so wide that his loose teeth were visible. Elder O said that Heck said to go out one at a time, so he gets first dibs. But then a stranger approached them and asked, is this the Dragon and Tiger Fighting Academy? Heck replied that was correct and asked who was he? Elder O also shouted and asked, who's climbing ahead of him here? He is still the first. The stranger started laughing and replied that he seemed to be the Heck he had heard about. Heck replied that that was right, it was him. The stranger bowed and said that, and he was just a wanderer. Came to challenge the senior student of the notorious Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. And then the boys were surprised to hear him call himself a wanderer. But Taran remembered and recognized that he was the one who hurt the teacher. That's his voice. Heck said he didn't think he would be challenged so quickly. He had just dealt with 2 gangs. What an obvious tactic. Heck asked the wanderer why he shouldn't go in. People asked, what's going on over there? Are they going to fight? The others asked, don't they know what a fighting match is? And that wanderer looks so threatening. The traveler looked around and saw that it was just an ordinary rural combat academy. Nothing that he had to come all this way for. Heck introduced himself and said that he was a senior apprentice of the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. The traveler introduced himself, and also replied that his name was Gawk. And then he thought, What could be so special about this guy? And then Hek told brother Yang that it was Gawk who was his opponent. Yang was surprised at his words and asked why. Gawk said that could be left out, since they started. Shouldn't the older student fight? Gawk realized that this was Hek's way of trying to play a joke on him. Hek replied that as a senior disciple of a famous dragon and tiger martial arts academy, he could immediately accept the challenge of a mere wanderer. Gawk was surprised and asked with anger, how dare Hek underestimate him like that? Who did he think he was? Hek was surprised and asked who he was then. Maybe he has a high rank or something? I wonder who he is. Gawk replied that he was a simple wanderer. Hek told Yang that it seems the wanderer is a bit of a thing. Yang told his older brother that Gawk could hear him. Hek said that he believed that everything had been decided. He immediately ordered Ian to stand on the battlefield. Gawk tells Huck that he's looking down on him. If that's the way he wants it, he'll kill his apprentice and then come after him. Yang was frightened at such words and in his head begged him to spare him. Immediately, Gawk began to attack. Ian was scared shitless and managed to frame his sword so it wouldn't catch him. His brothers shouted at him to come to his senses. Yang trembled with fear and realized that his opponent was very strong. Gawk told him that luckily he was able to block the blow. Apparently that was all he could do. Yang thought and pondered. His opponent must surely be a first-ranked fighter. Gawk said that he could only blame his older brother. He was the one who put him up for the fight. Ian was even more frightened and angry at his words. The guys addressed him, but he paid no attention to them. While Hek watched the duel, Taehyung turned to his older brother and said that the opponent looked too strong. Can the third brother handle it? Hek asked his younger brother Yang. Does he want to surrender? And then Yang clenched his sword in his hands and replied that no. Hek tells Ian that he heard him. And let him just do the same thing he did in their training sessions. Yang heard his brother's words and said he understood. Goku didn't like it, and thought, how dare Hek be so arrogant in front of him. Gawk said he heard them too, and if they wanted blood, then he would give him hell and immediately headed out to attack. Yang at this time saw that Gawk was definitely stronger than him. But his older brother's sword is much stronger and sharper. Yen believed in himself and poisoned this difficult attack. The battle had been going on for hours now. Ian didn't want to give up and stood to the last to avoid disgracing his honor and the honor of the clan. The man was asking people who they thought would win. The guy asked, can he see? Master Yang is being pushed back. Gawk was already starting to get angry that he couldn't kill this boy. He wondered how the boy had fended off all his attacks. Apparently, he's barely superior to a third-ranked fighter. That's the best he can do. He'll chop him to pieces. Yang saw the strength in Hek's face and realized that his business was crappy. But then Hek shouted for him to take 2 steps dragon and tiger to the left. 4th sword move dragon and tiger. Yang did all of Hek's errands and in a moment he did the impossible for himself. He wounded this Gawk. Everyone was surprised at that moment and couldn't believe that Yang had made it. And Hek just watched and was proud of himself and his student. The people were also all surprised that the outcome of the battle had changed in a moment. Feeling the pain in his chest, Gawk said that it was impossible. Ian himself was overjoyed and couldn't believe that he had managed to hurt a rank 1 fighter. Was he really weaker than he thought? It was indeed not easy for him to repel his blows. But he was only following his older brother's advice. Gawk lost his temper and insulted the guy and said how dare he do that. And now he can't dream of an easy death. Hek saw this moment and told Yang to take 1 step dragon and tiger back. A 2nd sword strike dragon and tiger, then a 3rd. Ian heard everything clearly and started to do everything. He managed to step back and took a step forward, and used the 1st sword move, followed by a half step to the right. The 6th sword move, dragon and tiger. And then the dragon and tiger fist turn. Hek further said to make the 1st sword strike with the dragon and tiger. And then step to the right. Ian began to believe even more in himself and his ability to win this battle. He saw that his enemy's sword had reached. Hek told Yang to do the dragon and tiger kick, and used the 4th technique. Yang saw that his big brother's instructions were so precise. He just needed to trust him. Hek told him to strike the dragon and tiger sword and use the 7th technique. Yen realized that he only needed to follow his instructions. Ian did as his older brother told him, and with his sword managed to wound the enemy's chest, which made him bleed directly. And then Heck came up and said that he believes this is the end. Doesn't Gawk think it would be too hard to fight him with his level? Gawk got angry and insulting Heck asked, what kind of tricks were these? Otherwise, how could this crappy academy do such a thing? Heck didn't dare him to insult his clan, and immediately approached him with his formidable face and dark energy. Gawk was very much surprised to see a strong man standing in front of him. Heck didn't speak to him, and immediately slammed his fist into his chest. Gawk couldn't handle the pressure of such a blow, and was badly injured. Heck said he would have just let him go without him chatting too much. Heck asked him how dare they look down on their academy? Gawk immediately felt that this guy was going to kill him. Gawk accepted his defeat and knelt down and told Heck to forgive him. He bowed and asked to be spared. Heck saw that everyone was looking at him and told Goku that he would spare him today. Let him get out of here immediately. The academy boys immediately rejoiced and started shouting that they had defeated their opponent in such a difficult battle. People shouted back that Master Heck is so cool. He's so strong. It was amazing. And they too are willing to give their son to this academy. Gawk had been running back to his clan the whole time, and realized that he had to tell them. They could get rid of him with a normal fight. He's at least the top rank, or even stronger. But this guy is actually very dangerous. And then Heck didn't leave him alone, and in a moment he caught up with him and launched his attack. Heck directly wounded his chest with his sharp sword. Gawk immediately fell to the ground and leaned against a tree bleeding. Heck apologized to him, and said he couldn't let him go back and report him to his superior. He can't let go of someone who might bring trouble to their academy in the future. However, if he answers the question posed, he will do so painlessly. Meanwhile, in another clan's territory, several people were torturing a guy, hoping to get information. The masked man asked him if he was ready to talk. The guy asked the man what he wanted him to say. The man asked who the creep was that sent him to spy on them. The guy replied that he was repeating himself. He didn't know what they were talking about. He came to Yunha County as an escort to earn some money. He doesn't even know anyone here except his employer. The man looked at his ringleader, who was in the shadows and not showing his appearance to this guy. The man took up his sword and said that if that was true, he was out of luck. And then the guy said they would be sorry. And his big brother would never forgive them. The man at this moment was surprised at the guy's words. This guy was the 4th student of the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. The first child of the head of Cheonhajeil, named Taran. The man started laughing and asked Taran what he was saying about his older brother. Let him take it easy. The man immediately raised his sword above his head and said that he would send his brother after him. Heck neither did this fellow named Gon, and by his cruel experience he cut off his head so that there would be no information. Heck thought into it as he received the information, and said that the Great Iron Blood Emperor was involved. Great Iron Blood Emperor, one of the top 10 Nirim Masters, also known as one of the 4 Great Devil Emperors, the late head of the Demon Alliance, the Invincible Blood Emperor. Does this mean that the Iron Blood Platoon, which he leads, has subjugated a great power? It must be about to devour not only Cheonhajeil County, but also the entire Gansu province. There's no way the Broken Demon Alliance would anger the Nirim Alliance at a time like this. After all, the Great Iron Blood Emperor is not that stupid. And what's more, he left the Kantong sect, which was forced to close down after the Great War. How the 8 emperors in the Nirim Alliance lost power. And it looks like Cheonhajeil County is in a tricky position. Master Henna came to his senses and was already starting to move around. He walked up to the tree and looked up at the sky and asked the master how he was doing. He thought he would have joined him by now, but he couldn't. May the master forgive him for that. He doesn't know how, but Mujan came back and cured him. He hopes they will be happy to see him in the future. The teacher would ask how this scrawny little boy, who hadn't eaten much of anything, had grown so much. They would be very proud of him too. Muzang has returned. The academy, and the whole village, had revitalized. It seemed that they had received about 20 applications for admission thanks to the morning's performance. The teacher said his progress leads him to believe the academy is going back to the old days. The teacher started scratching the wood with his fingernails and said that one of his boys was missing. His eldest son has gone off to earn money to save his infirm father. Is he starving or wounded? The teacher mused to himself and asked why he couldn't reach him. It was Taran, his most good and hard-working son. And then Hen remembered that moment when Taran's mother had been very ill. She had told them that they were still so young. Her mother said she was so sorry. At that moment, Taran asked his mother not to go and leave them. The mother turned to Muzangui, asking him if he would listen to her last request. Muzang replied that he would. The mother said she tried to love all 3 students as her own sons. So, could he take care of her Taran and Taeho as his brothers? How would the poor mistress do it? Who would have to go first? Hek replied to mistress that he would do as she asked. Mistress thanked him and said she could close her eyes in peace. Hek sat down to write the letter and said that after the great ominous war he had promised himself countless times that he would never contact them again. But the crooks targeting Yangzhou County and the missing 4th brother, now is not the time to worry about coincidences. In the morning, some homeless man was walking around the grounds singing his vile songs. People covered their faces because the stench was so bad they couldn't be here. The homeless guy was telling the guy why don't he die and never come back. Wakata, Wakata, he's here. And then the woman couldn't stand his voice and poured water on him telling him to shut up. After all, this beggar bastard would ruin her business. The man calmed the lady down and asked what she would do if this homeless man from the begging gang. The mistress asked in surprise, what? If this tramp is from a gang of beggars, then she's a princess. And then the homeless man smiled and said that thanks to her, he had a clean face. And he got some water. And then homeless man opened his mouth and asked, why don't they throw a cup of rice wine exactly into his mouth, if I may? Hek was walking beside him at the time, and in a moment he caught the homeless man with his shoulder, causing him to lose his footing and fall to the ground. The homeless man didn't like this. He immediately got up on his hands and did a few somersaults in the sky. As he began to look around he asked, who was that? He sees no one suspicious. He, a Group 5 beggar, didn't sense his presence until he touched his back. I guess he must be a great martial arts master. But in a moment he saw that he had a letter in his hand and thought, where did that come from? And then the homeless man saw the hieroglyph and realized that it was a mysterious master who knew the cipher. And he must urgently tell everything to the elder. The homeless man became very fast and immediately went to report the information. The lady was surprised at this point that he turned out to be the master of the beggar gang. Meng smashed the glass in his hands and asked what O had just told him. Even Gong had been defeated? O answered him that everything was correct. O said that the news has already taken over all of Yangzhou. The whole city is talking about the fight, and the popularity of the martial arts academy is only growing. Meng asked, what about Gawk Chigil? O replied that after the duel, he suddenly disappeared. Perhaps he ran away for fear of punishment. Meng ordered them to catch him and bring him back. He's sure Gawk couldn't have gotten far. O asked, what about the Dragon and Tiger Martial Academy? Mi immediately replied, Yang Sodi. And in a moment he appeared. Yang Suth was the ghostly assassin of Guangdong. Yang asked the master, did he summon him? This guy's stealth technique is terrifying. Meng asked him what he thought. Yang replied that Gawk, a second-ranked fighter, had been defeated. He is sure they are dealing with a serious master, even if the rumors are exaggerated. However, things would change if they ambushed them. Meng thought and said to take advantage of Hek Muzang's absence and destroy this academy. Yang asked then, what about Hek Muzang? Meng replied that they should scare him first. He will come back and shed bloody tears, and then Ian will strike from behind and cut his life short. And it will finally be over in such a short time. On the morning, an old man approached the academy and addressed Hek. Hek greeted Mr. Gum. Gum said they're killing the street themselves, as usual. They need to put someone else in charge of it. Hek started laughing and replied that he has been doing it since he was young. Gum said it was true. He was a hard worker. Gum said it was amazing, but how much Hek looked like him in his youth. And at that time, the girl from the window was looking at them and did not take her eyes off Hek. But then the mistress came to the lady and said that she had been sitting here for 2 days. What is she waiting for? The girl asked Papa how she thought people could change. Papa asked her, what does she mean? The girl answered that their character. He used to be so quiet, cold as ice. And now he smiles broadly, greets everyone and talks nicely. It's like a different person. Papa said this usually happens when a person is on the verge of death, didn't she? The girl immediately thought with her menacing stare. Papa was startled and asked, what was that look? Many people say that people change before they die. The girl didn't listen to such and started beating the woman. Heck immediately sensed that something was wrong here. Gum looked up at the sky and asked, "What is it? A kite? It's flying so high." And then Heck realized that he had finally seen it. Heck turns to Gam and says he has some business to attend to, needs to go. He asks him to let him know if there are any problems. Heck told his brother he'd be back soon. While he's gone, have him guard the academy. Papa looked out the window and asked the girl, was she waiting for him? The girl asked her to get down faster. Papa asked, isn't he a student of a simple martial academy? Why would the precious treasure of Mujan, the greatest family of Murim, follow him? And then the girl asked, who said he was following him? She just hadn't prepared herself yet. The girl in the moment looked out the window and saw something suspicious. Papa asked her what was wrong. The girl replied that the man was acting suspiciously. At this moment, second brother saw some person approaching the academy, and he seemed very suspicious. He said that it was amazing how worthless this martial academy was. The second brother got angry and asked him who he was. Second brother saw that this guy looked dangerous, and he showed up right after big brother left the academy. Yen started to look at the guy and replied that it was immediately obvious that he was barely above the third rank. Who would have thought that he would defeat Gawk Cheonhajeil? The second brother stopped him with a stick and said he asked who he was. If he is suddenly looking for a duel, let him leave nicely. After all, their academy doesn't accept any challenges. Ian immediately started smiling at his words and asked, what? Ian told the boy not to worry. After all, he is not here for that. And then second brother didn't have time to say a word before Yang attacked him unexpectedly. Ian immediately punched the younger man in the stomach, leaving him no chance for him to call for help. The boys immediately went outside with the teacher and asked, what's all the noise? And what's going on here? They watched in a moment as the other brother flew to their feet and began spitting blood. The blow was so strong that he couldn't handle it. Ian walked up to them and said they had to be of the same level to call it a fight, and all of them standing in front of him are just crawling insects. Ten immediately drew his sword and said, he's an arrogant parasite. Master told them to stop. The power level of the Dragon and Tiger Academy might be low, but they are still part of the Murim Alliance, and if he doesn't want to make trouble for himself, let him go now. Ian started to say that he was very scared. They are still trying to join the Murima Alliance. Yang said he believed he had no choice. He immediately, with his disappearance, he swooped down on the teacher from behind and said that he had to kill all of them. At this time the homeless man was sitting in a tree sleeping. But in a moment he sensed that someone had come and said that Heck came later than he thought. Heck said he was the one who was late. It's been 10 days since he sent the letter. He's sure the man already knows. The man replied that judging from the bad mannerisms, he was the White Tiger. Even this old man believed he was still alive. This was the leader of the beggar gang. The divine beggar ghost mask. The ghostly mask asked the guy where he's been for the last 2 years since the war. He can't find any trace of him. Heck asked him did he have any particular reason to seek him out. Surely he and he no longer had any business in common. Moreover, it seems that the ghostly mask came alone. The mask replied that although he kept it a secret, he had received the letter before him. And then a man from the Special Forces begging gang came out, and told Huck that he wanted to surprise him, for his senses are still as sharp as a white tiger. But no, probably even sharper. Heck asked him, Number 8? Number 8 replied that they would now see if his skills had improved. And in a moment he launched his attack. Heck had been waiting all this time for him to approach and at the last moment stopped him with his hand. Number 8 was surprised, and immediately hugged Heck and started laughing. Number 8 said that he was really alive, the White Tiger. And he was so happy to see him. Heck said men don't hug. If someone sees them, they'll think they're close. Number 8 was surprised at such words and said that Heck made him sad. Wasn't he the closest to him of the 4 guards? And then Heck said 4 guards? Would he call someone his friend first? Mask didn't miss this moment, and with his attack swooped in and shouted that Number 8 scum. Mask asked him how dare he create a gust of wind in front of his teacher? Does he think he should be covered in dust at that age? Number 8 replied that he was so glad. An old friend he thought was dead was back. Why should the greatest master of the beggar gang be so stingy? And then Mask replied that he was the reason his new clothes, which he hadn't worn in 2 years, were covered in dust. Does he still call him stingy? And perhaps he should kill the student he's been taking care of for 20 years. Heck asked him. Number 8 was his student. Mask replied, that's exactly what it is. Awkward, but he's his only student. Thought he'd become more prudent after a few assignments. But then number 8 asked Heck that he was surprised that his friend was a beggar? But good looking, no one would say he was a beggar. Heck turned to Mask and said he had a question for him. Mask replied that he was listening. Number 8 got angry and said he was still here. Heck said that 6 years ago, Mask promised to come to his rescue 3 times a year. Does that promise still stand? Mask was surprised and asked what he still remembered. Heck replied that if he didn't want to, then let him not worry about it. It's okay to forget everything. Mask asked, who said he didn't want to? Does he look like he's taking back what he said? Whatever it is, just say it. And he'll totally take care of it. Heck asked, sure he was sure of what he was saying? He said he would take full care of it, whatever it was. Mask was immediately surprised and said that it was like that. At this time in the academy, Yang was fighting with the teacher and students of the academy. The teacher dodged his attack and in a moment withdrew his blade to put up a fight with this lowlife. Ian was surprised and told the teacher that he had managed to block. Apparently, the old man would be better than the students. Yen asked, then he would have to speed up. Teacher realized that this technique was only inferior to top-ranked warriors. Can't keep up with him. Jan started laughing and asked, why the look on your face? Are you confused because of such a nonsense? What a disappointment this is. The teacher immediately started swinging his sword in hopes of catching him. Yang crept up behind him and said that he was too slow. In a moment, Taehan joined in with his attack and asked, how dare he? Let him move away from their teacher now. But Yang was so fast that he dodged his attack in a straight line. But then the third brother jumped up and shouted that he was with Toking. Ian dodged his attack again and started laughing loudly, saying how touching it was. Even united, could 3 people stop a wild dog? The other brother stood with a bloody face and realized that he couldn't see him. And there was such a gulf between them. Big brother was right. No matter how strong he is, if they attacked in his absence, it would be the end for the academy. In other words, they must become stronger. The second brother realized that he couldn't even hit. How pathetic! They are so powerless in this battle. But then a girl came up to him and touched his back. The second brother turned around and was very scared and surprised. The girl told him not to be surprised. She only improved the circulation of qi. The second brother asked who was she, and so the moment came when Jan asked them, who should he kill first? The old man? The youngest? Or the older one? Would they like to discuss it amongst themselves? Taehong immediately decided to attack and was telling him not to play with them. Does he really think they can be intimidated like that? Let him attack if he's not afraid. At that time the teacher shouted at him not to do that. And then Ian realized and was saying that he was the lucky one. It was clear by now that Taehan was going to be dead. The teacher was in a very difficult situation and shouted for Taeyong to run away. But then the girl came and stopped his blade with 2 fingers. At that moment everyone was surprised and could not believe it. Ian didn't expect this turn of events either. The girl asked him, was he brave or stupid? The girl used her magic and coated that blade in her energy, and slowly absorbed that fiend. The girl cracked his blade and asked how dare he attack an academy affiliated with the Murim Alliance right in front of her eyes. Ian started spurting blood and screaming that he had lost his arm. The girl immediately came up to him and stepped on his chest. The girl gripped her blade and told him to give one reason why she shouldn't chop his head off right now, and called him the ghost killer of Guangdong Yang Sot. Yang asked her who she thought she was. The girl replied that this was a bad answer. She immediately pointed her blade at him and told him to die. The academy teacher saw this and shouted for her to stop. The girl stopped her blade at the last moment between Ian's neck. The teacher asked her if she could spare him. The girl looked at him and was very surprised. Taehan asked his father, what was he saying? I mean, he was trying to kill them. If it wasn't for her. The teacher answered the boy that he remembered. The teacher clenched his blade and said it was not a matter of pity. However, the girl told him that he was afraid of the consequences. After all, he might not be alone, right? The girl asked. The teacher put his head to the side and replied that he had nothing to say. Ian asked, "Was that a good enough reason?" The girl put her blade away and said that since that was the case, it would be wiser to let him live for now. Jen said for her to stop making noise now. The girl said to find who sent him. An interrogation would have to be done. And then Jan was very much distressed and asked fearfully, "What?" The girl put her foot back and started stepping because of all her strength. The girl apologized to the teacher and said that she hadn't introduced herself yet. Her name is Mujan, a senior patrolman of the Northern Command of the Murima Alliance. The teacher was greatly surprised and asked, "Heavenly Sword Goddess?" They couldn't believe that she had come to their rescue. Mask asked Hyuk that he just needs to find this child, right? And his name is John Taran? Hek replied that even a small clue would be enough. If he found it, he would be considered to have fulfilled all his promise. Number 8 called him a scoundrel and asked that he even knew how valuable the teacher's help card was. How dare he use all 3 to find a mere man? Let him give him the remaining 2, he can use them. Hek replied that it's not just a person. It's extremely important. Mask said he must be very important since he was asking for every effort to be made to find him. Be that as it may, but it's too much to equate one request with 3. He'll only count one promise. Hek agreed and replied that he would wait for word. Mask told the White Tiger to wait. Mask asked him, does he really believe the war is over? And immediately ordered number 8 to put his fist down if he didn't want to be beaten. Hek replied that it was none of his business. Don't involve Go in the affairs of the Murim Alliance anymore. And then he vanished before their eyes. Mask was surprised by this and asked, was the White Tiger always this strong? He turned to number 8 that he would be responsible for this. Let him find the child Chong Taran asked for, and he will take them. Number 8 replied that it was none of his business. Let Mask leave him out of their business. Mask couldn't listen to that kind of attitude, and straight up sent the numbers 8 into a knockout. Hak immediately headed for his house after these conversations. But when he entered the school grounds, he stopped, and was surprised to see Taehyun wiping away the blood. Hek immediately ran up and asked what had happened. The boy answered his older brother that shortly after he left, that mistress came in. Hek didn't understand what he was talking about and asked who? Hek grabbed Taehyun's face and asked, does it hurt anywhere? What about the teacher? What about the others? What happened to the lady? Taehyun replied to his older brother that he was fine. Hyuk said he was being too careless. He thought it wouldn't be a problem if he went away for a while. Taehyun said the second brother was injured. The others were also in danger until the senior patrolman showed up. The mistress identified herself as the chief patrolman of the Murim Alliance. She overpowered the enemy and locked him up for questioning. Hek asked, a senior patrolman of the Murim Alliance? Why would a high-ranking official walk into a rural combat academy? Taehyun replied that she said she was just passing by. Hek replied that he didn't think so, that the authorized Murim Alliance was honorable enough to do all this because of concern for Gansu. Hek said, well, he should thank her first. Where is the senior patrol officer? Taehyung replied that she was having tea with her father right now. He gave his return to tell him everything. Hek replied that he would go and let Taehyun finish up and go rest. Taehyun got excited and said it would be done. At this time the master asked the woman that she was Papa Somamai, the dragon staff warrior, one of the 100 best Murim masters. The teacher said who would have thought that members of the higher circle of Murim would help them. Their academy is blessed. Papaha replied to the teacher that he was right. Her mistress herself had offered to help them. They should be forever grateful. Gamwa immediately stepped on her foot with anger that Papa's face reddened with pain and almost fell over. Gamwa started laughing and said that Papaha was talking unnecessarily. She was only doing her job as a senior patrolman. Anyway, the tea is just magical. The teacher immediately butted in and said she was right. He has a duty to repay her favor. Mrs. Mujuan, he thanked her again for saving them. And then Hek came and approached the teacher, saying that it was him. The teacher was very happy and told him to come in. Hek came in and said that he had heard that their savior was here. And in a moment, Hen froze with surprise. The teacher told Hek that it was good that he had come. Let him introduce himself. Papa Somamai, dragon staff warrior, and Mujuan Gamwa, senior patrolman of the north. They saved their academy. Gamwa immediately got up from the table and walked over to Hek. The others didn't understand what was going on, why Hake was acting so strangely. Gamwa called him the White Tiger. She hugged his face with her soft hands and looked into his eyes. She cried in a moment, and said that she was finally, and hugged him tightly. Gamwa was very happy at this moment, and said that they had met. Hek immediately remembered the times when Gamwa was young and practiced in the mountains, and smiled at the White Tiger with her sweet smile. And then Hek pushed her away and told Gamwa that this might sound rude, but she would mistake him for someone else. Gamwa was very surprised and saddened to hear such words. Hek said that he didn't know important people like the chief patrolman. Gamwa immediately turned to him and asked him why he was acting like this. She was the one. Hek bowed and replied that he had heard that she had saved their academy from a great threat, and he was grateful for their kindness. Gamwa immediately grabbed his arm and asked, "What kind of joke is this? Did he really not remember? It's her, number 6. And how can he pretend to be a stranger? After 5 years in hell." Hek wouldn't listen to her, and in a moment he pushed her away and removed his hand. Immediately he told her to stop. Hek asked, "Didn't he make himself clear? Do all important people call their opinions so vehemently?" Hek looked into her eyes angrily, and said that he didn't know her. The girl couldn't hold back her emotions and let a tear fall at one point. The teacher was also surprised by this situation and asked Hek, how dare he say such a thing to a girl? It's disrespectful. The teacher immediately clenched his fist and said that even the beasts would recognize the help they had received. And he still dares to make such a brazen display in front of their saviors? And he wasn't trained for this. Have him apologize immediately and get out of here. Hek heard the teacher and apologized for losing his temper. The guy bowed and said that he deeply regretted his disrespectful attitude towards the senior patrolman, and humbly asked to take back the inconvenience caused. Gamwa agreed and replied that everything was fine, and we could just forget the whole thing. Hake bowed and thanked him for his understanding. Gamwa asked him what he thought she would say. She didn't hold back her emotions either and flew at him with her fists. Hek didn't have time to dodge and flew out of the room like a cork and smashed several doors. Hek stood up in a moment and wiped away the blood. Gamwa went outside and told Hake that he had suddenly disappeared. She was worried to death even 2 years later when she finally found him and went to visit him. And that's how he meets her? And he says he doesn't know him yet? And she's like, God, I'm sorry. What an idiot. She mistook her for someone else. Had he really been waiting for those words, the fucking bastard? Or maybe he'd lost his mind in the meantime, her dear White Tiger. Hek asked, how many more times does he have to say it? He's not a White Tiger. The girl lost her temper and asked what did he think, that she wouldn't distinguish him lying down, what he was like in anger, in joy or sorrow, his speech, his habits. She had forgotten no one, so why does he keep saying he doesn't know her? Why is that? If even his face gives away the pain, but it's over, so be it. Gamwa asked the teacher as he called her senior patrolman. If it was okay with him, could they stay with them for a couple of days? The teacher asked. Do they want to settle in the academy? Hek also asked what she was up to. Gamwa said that Mr. Hek can do whatever he wants. She won't give up until she fully assesses the situation. The teacher replied that she was leaving him no choice. The Dragon and Tiger Academy is part of the Muram Alliance. According to their vows, any high-ranking representative can find shelter within their walls. If this place does not embarrass her, please let them stay as long as they wish. Gamwa rejoiced and asked, really? And immediately she thanked him for his kindness. The teacher told her to follow him. He would personally guide her. Hek realized this wasn't going the way he wanted it to. Number 8 came from behind and asked, did you have to tell her? Hek asked in surprise, Number 8? The guy said to forgive him. And he didn't think it would turn out that way. But how could he hide it from her? She's been scouring the world looking for him. Everyone thought he was dead, urged her to give up the search. But she'd show up in a rage and fight back. Hek asked, 2 years? Number 8 replied that it was exactly like that. He had never seen Number 5 so unhappy before. Number 8 asked, so why did he act like that? Here he looks at him. He doesn't seem to have changed. Or maybe it had something to do with meeting that guy. Hek turned around in a moment and instantly shut Number 8's mouth. Number 8 thought, what's going on? He can't say anything. Hek told him to watch his words. Let him beware of the consequences. Number 8 immediately realized that Heck is much stronger than him. Heck said that Number 8 was the only one in the whole world who knew that he had met him. Number 8 realized that 2 years ago he was at the bottom of the top class. But how had he done it? Heck said that if Number 5 found out, he would have only himself to blame. And then Heck came to his senses and apologized to Number 8, saying that he got a little excited. And he thinks he needs to take a break and cool his head. Number 8 asked if he had gotten the chance by accident. Heck thanked him for the drink and said he couldn't ignore his friend's generosity. Number 8 was surprised and asked what kind of Chinese wine was this. He had to go through a lot to steal this precious wine and teacher. At this time, Jan was tied up in the basement and slowly bleeding out. But in a moment he heard someone coming. Ian wondered who had come to see him. He realized that the door had been closed all this time. When the guy came in, Ian asked the guy, did he come to threaten? Too bad, but he had nothing more to say to them. Let them save themselves the trouble, and just cut off his head. He's already lost his right arm and his chi center. He's in the grave. But it was different, and the guy freed Yang. Ian was surprised at this situation and asked him what he was doing. The stranger answered nothing and pointed his finger to silence him. Ian at this time looked at the stranger and thought, who was he? Had he come for him? But then he wouldn't release him. The stranger immediately pointed his finger toward an exit from which to escape. Ian thought he was telling him to leave. But was he lucky? But why was it like this? Jan decided to turn around and ask the stranger if his teacher Meng had slept. But he couldn't see anyone behind him anymore. Jan got to his feet and asked that he had survived. Gamwa at this time said that the white tiger was a fucking scumbag and may he burn in hell. How could he pretend he didn't know her? He didn't even blink an eye. Papaha said, seeming to tremble slightly. Just then, Gamwa turned around and told her to cut the crap. Papa started coughing and saying how come there was so much dust. Papa decided to speak up and told Gamwa that if Chester, she didn't like him. Why should she suffer for a guy like that? Crowds of officials would not hesitate to pretend to be dead if she only wished. And he dared to speak so rudely to her. What did she expect from such a simpleton from a rural martial academy? Gamwa immediately stood up and started yelling at her for her words. Papa jumped up and said she was scared. Gamwa told her to watch her words. Let her not dare underestimate him. If she insults him again, he will never see her again. Papa said that Gamwa himself had just insulted him from head to toe. Gamwa started shouting and replied that it was different. Papa says she understands. And she pleads with her, because what else can an old woman say? She's not upset at all. And even before that, the young mistress had often said that she loved Papa more than anyone else. But of course, compared to some guy, she's just a worthless old woman. What happened to her sweet mistress? And in the moment, Gamwa said that she doesn't feel the presence of the ghostly killer Guangdong. Gamwa immediately ran to the back room and saw that all the doors were open and the guard was lying unconscious. Gamwa got very upset and was saying that this guy was lying unconscious. She started wobbling him and saying he can't die. Let him get up. After all, his elder brother is very dear to him. Gamwa was asking him to wake up. She couldn't contain her emotions and was ready to slap him. The boy opened his eyes in a moment and saw Mistress Palm flying at him. And before he could react, he flew in the other direction. Gamwa started slapping him and yelling at him to get up. He must live. Let him not die and let him open his eyes. Papa tried to bring her to her senses, but she couldn't hear her and had to shout at the top of her voice. Gamwa came to her senses and stopped. Popa said that his deep sleep point was activated. Gamwa asked, then why doesn't he wake up? Popa replied that perhaps he was sleeping soundly. Gamwa sighed and said that it was very good that he was uninjured. If her prisoner had injured any of the students, she would not have forgiven herself. Popa said that of course that's what she's saying. And she realizes she can't exactly tell her the truth. Gamwa said she was pretty sure the ghost killer had a broken chi center. So how did he get out and activate the student's point? She wondered if someone had helped him. But she sensed no intruders. What kind of mastermind was able to bypass her? Popa turned to Mistress and asked her to have a look at it. There is a light blade mark on the bottom of this post. It's tiny, barely noticeable. What kind of sword can do that? And then Gamwa thought and realized that it was a heavenly sword, the angle of impact and that unique sharpness. There can be no mistake. But why did he do it? Ian immediately ran over to the group Great Power and began to tell the main man what had happened. Ming asked Yang what he said the goddess of the heavenly sword did it. Yang replied that was correct. He is sure. She introduced herself as the senior patrolman of the north, Mujan Gamwa. Meng asked him why. Yang was surprised and asked what? Meng started yelling and said he asked why. Using his strength, Meng released energy and directed it at Yan's head. Meng asked, what did the senior patroller of the north forget in the Southern Rural Martial Academy? Men said that if the Muram Alliance found out they were involved, things would get out of hand. If the still invincible Bloody Emperor finds out about their deal with them, they will all die here and disappear from the face of the earth. O asked, what about getting rid of the senior patrolman? Before the situation escalates? Meng immediately started shouting and saying that they were fools. She is young, but a martial artist, surpassing even himself. Moreover, doesn't O know that she is accompanied by one of the top 100 masters, a dragon staff warrior? More importantly, she's related to the sword god Mujan Cheonhajeil. O thinks she will remain unharmed by attacking one of the 10 strongest in the world? Jen said that everything would be fine. Few people know that he was working for a great power. The girl recognized him, but there is no evidence linking him to the group, and luckily their man saved him before the interrogation. Meng was very much surprised at the moment and asked, what did Yang say? What other person was his? Meng asked. Yan himself was surprised by Meng's question and asked that it wasn't them. Ian asked surprised, then who could it be? And then he turned around and saw the very savior who had come to their group. Meng wondered in a moment, and didn't realize how this man had infiltrated the group. He hadn't sensed his presence. Ian couldn't even say a word as the guy used his thread and killed him right in front of their eyes. Meng immediately realized that if that needle had targeted him first, but things would have ended differently. He asked the guy, is he an assassin? And what was his purpose in coming here? And then Hek took off his mask and replied that he was just a wanderer. And he had come to challenge a great power. O was immediately surprised and asked, Hek Muchang? Meng also asked him, what is he saying? That academy student he was talking about? O replied that he was sure. The appearance is like the sketch. But nowhere did it say he was an assassin, Meng said, not surprised that a mere student of a martial academy is so unruly. Does he really want to give something back? Meng started pulling his weapon out of his hand and said, who would have thought he'd burst in here alone? And what kind of assassin would come out of the shadows into the light? Meng immediately used his weapon and said that Hek must be looking down on them. Hek was afraid of nothing and stood still before his rope reached him, and he grabbed it with his hands. Hek said it looked like they were done with the pointless chatter. Meng was surprised to see him grab his whip with his bare hands. Meng at this point wondered why he couldn't break free. Hek said for him to take it as accepting the challenge, but let him speak first. He's in a terrible mood today. So let them not be offended if he hurts them. O jumped on Hek, insulting him, telling him to let him go immediately. But Hek saw everything and didn't even flinch. Hek immediately let go of the whip and said what he would do now. And in a moment he let it go from his hands. He let the whip go so that it flew at O, who was attacking Hek at that moment, but was caught by another attack. O had time to react, and used his attack to avoid hurting himself. When Meng saw that, he thought it was the end. O asked Hek how dare he pull such petty tricks. Hek didn't bother to chat with him, and raised his foot above his head. Hek didn't use much strength. He at this moment brought his foot down on his head, and shoved him underneath. Meng was surprised and realized that O had defeated high-ranked fighters and he had straightened him out with a single punch. Hek killed O and said it looks like one's already out. What's he gonna do now? He hasn't even gotten half of his anger out yet. Meng smiled and said as he admitted that he looked down on Hek. Who knew that the Rural Martial Academy would find such a master? Meng decided he was about to show him real power. Hek heard his words and intentions and told him to act. Meng gathered all of his energy and shouted an attack that would knock that humbug off of him. He used the secret technique of dragon blood, combined with the thunderous strike of the demonic purple whip. Meng thought that even a highly ranked experienced warrior couldn't block the dragon's thunderous strike. No matter how hard he tried, he wouldn't get out unharmed. And Heck had lost. Heck looked at that whip and pulled his spokeshave out of his hand, with which he had previously killed Yang. Using the energy, he used the safety net. Heck went straight towards the attack and with his blade afterward, cut the whip into small pieces. Men couldn't believe it and asked who he was. But before he could even hear the answer, Heck chopped his head off. Heck then replied that the senior student of the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. Heck decided he didn't need to leave any traces behind and made the decision to burn every last one of the place down. The guards saw the smoke and shouted that the outer hall was on fire. Have them warn the head about it. The head of the great power, the Devil Lord, the Iron Leg, Quack asked them what they were talking about. Where did the fire come from there? Quack asked what the hell was Meng doing. The head of the inner hall Wang replied that he was sure, he had his own in the chambers. But the fire is so strong, they can't get in. Quack told Van to order everyone to contain the fire, then report the damage. If they also find Meng, have him sent to him. Quack sat on his bed and thought, where could a fire come from in the middle of the night? How were they watching the palace? But then he saw Meng's head appear in front of him. He hadn't expected this and couldn't believe it was him. Quack was frightened by this situation and asked who was here. Heck put on his mask again and answered that he was the one who would save him today. Quack turned around in a moment and realized he hadn't sensed his presence. He's right in front of him, but he still doesn't feel him, and it turns out he's a professional assassin. Quack said to Huck, wondering if he was one of the 4 commanders. Heck sighed and replied, wondering if Quack knew them. The leader of the demonic Wild Wind Squad, Quack. Quack realized he couldn't handle him alone. Quack said that one of the 4 commanders remembered his name. Since the war, it's a great honor. What brings the secret sword of the Murim Alliance to this humble place? Quack realized that he needed to stall for time. Quack asked him if he really wanted to break the treaty and start a war. Quack pulled out his weapons slowly and realized that he needed to signal and gather everyone here. Heck said that for starters, he has nothing to do with the 4 commanders of the Murim Alliance. Moreover, he hates the Murim Alliance. Plus, said Heck, and heard Quack want to call for backup and in a moment cut it from his hands. Quack immediately grabbed his head and thought, what is going on? His head is still on his shoulders. Is this an illusion? No. Not just an illusion. Heck told him not to try any tricks. He's not going to wipe out their gang today. Quack realized that this was the first warning and apologized to him. Heck replied that it didn't matter. He set up a barrier, no one outside would hear. Quack asked the assassin what he meant he would spare him. Heck pulled out a paper and said that he had gotten this from the head of the Mina Hall. If the great Iron Blood Emperor got wind of their deal with them, they would all die immediately. Quack immediately freaked out and said that couldn't be it. Heck replied that that's exactly what it is. It's the bill, he brought them from outside the hall. Heck realized in his head that he had actually just taken whatever he found there. At any rate, the papers really did come from there. Quack said men are stupid to leave a document like that. Heck said they now realize the situation they are in. And it's time to get down to business. Quack asked him what he wanted. Heck replied that he wished for Yangzhou County. Let Quack swear that he will never touch Yangzhou County again. Quack replied that even if they let go, he would be taken over by a gang of bloody unicorns. Heck replied that he was sure they didn't want to be overthrown by a battalion of iron blood. It would be better if they maintained their territories remotely. Heck said to keep them all in mind if they tried to pull anything off again. And then Quack yelled for the assassin to stop, because he was already on his last breath. Heck said that they would have to avoid not only the great Iron Blood Emperor, but also himself. Is everything clear to him? Heck realized in his head that Quack was right. If he got rid of one gang, another would immediately take its place. It'll be more unpleasant if a battalion of iron-blooded men get involved. Better to keep him in power. Heck said he would let him live. Quack realized that he could have died. Where did this monster come from? Were the 4 commanders that strong? Was he really not from the Murim Alliance? Heck said he had something else. Everything that's been said should. And then the guards yelled that they had found an intruder. And an intruder. At that time, Gamwa came to the territory of this clan. And seeing the fire, she said that it looked like he had already made a noise. Gamwa realized that she had spent too much time hiding from Papa. And when needed, she is never around, but this fire undoubtedly reminds her of the old days. The white tiger often used this tactic on solo missions, a distraction to get to the head, his main target. So he's after their leader. 2 years ago, the white tiger was from the strength of a rank 1 fighter. But even then, he could kill a top-rank master, the name of a detailed plan, keen senses, and critical thinking, and he could easily handle the head alone. Gamwa decided that she would stand aside and watch the fire. Gamwa said it was very beautiful. But in a moment her body began to release energy that glowed brightly, and she wondered what it was. Hek told Kwok to swear that he would never touch Yangzhou County again, and let him keep in mind that if he tries anything again, they'll have to avoid not only the great Iron Bloody Emperor, but the Emperor himself. Gamwa could see that it was barely perceptible there from behind the barrier, but there was an incredibly terrifying urge to kill coming from there. It's not just bloodlust. Devil Lord Iron Feet is not capable of such a thing. She immediately grabbed her blade and said that the white tiger was in danger. We must hurry and help. And in a moment, someone attacked her and Gamwa had time to use her weapon to defend herself. Gamwa realized that she was distracted by that bloodlust and forgot about hiding. The guy from the Great Power, the head of the Shadow Hallchil, said, "Here comes the rat." Gamwa in a moment left her seat and ran off to the side. Chul asked as she wanted to run away. Just like a rat, right? Was she the one who started the fire in the outer hall? Gamwa realized that she had no time for him. Gamwa asked him if he would believe him if she said it wasn't her. Gamwa realized at that moment that she would have to find a way to get rid of him. Chul told her to shut her mouth and call her a rat. He only listens to people, rat. Pee-pee. He asked Gamwa why she was so disgruntled. Gamwa at that moment thought she might kill him. Chul immediately whistled his tune and the guards shouted that they had found the intruder near the Shadow Hall. Chul attacked her, and calling her a rat asked her where she was looking. Gamwa immediately dodged his attack without even bothering. Gamwa realized that she needed to get out of here. Chul attacked again and asked the rat only knew how to dodge. Gamwa at this moment was only thinking that she needed to help the white tiger as soon as possible. Chul kept up with her and kept launching attacks. Gamwa realized in a moment that she couldn't take it anymore, and picking up the moment she launched an attack and said she would only hit once. With a devastating attack, Chul couldn't dodge and was hit in the head, crashing into the wall. Gamwa said that if he was looking for rats, let him look in the mirror then. Just then the warriors ran up to her and shouted that she was up there on the roof. Let them not put her down. The warriors saw that they could not get on the roof so quickly, and then Gamwa wasted no time and left. Chul came to his senses and started calling her a rat creature. Chul asked the warriors, "What are they standing for?" The warriors did not let her go and ran straight after her. Gamwa realized at that moment that she should have struck with her sword instead of her fist. Chul told Squad 1 and 3 to go to the women's quarters. Have the rest of them follow him. Gamwa hid around the corner at this time, and saw that they had beefed up the guards. She realized that from the top of the Murim alliance, if she were to kill everyone in the way, then it would cause quite a few political problems later. But what's most important to her right now is the safety of the white tiger. She needs to sneak into the main hall as quickly as possible and protect him. But it didn't take long for her place to be protected. Suddenly Chul and his men came running up and said that the rat was targeting the main hall. Gamwa started looking around and saw that they had surrounded her. Chul said there was nowhere for her to run now. Let her spin around 3 times and squeak. Then her death would be quick. Gamwa told them to forget politics, that idiot should die. But then Gamwa felt telepathy and turned around and saw a white tiger. Hek asked, what was she doing here? What if someone recognizes her? Chief Patrolman, she'd forgotten that she could be punished for her mere presence here. Gamwa smiled and said she was so glad the white tiger was intact. Chul asked Hek who he was, and since when did their headquarters become a red light street where everyone can hang out? And it turns out he's in league with that filthy rat animal, and it turns out that this stranger is also a rat. But here it was even more horrible. Hek didn't put up with it, and at one point chopped it in 2. Gamwa was surprised at this moment and thought, what was that? After all, she hadn't even seen anything. Was he really that good? Hek said he figures there's nothing he can do. And it looks like he's going to have to kill them all. Gamwa at this moment thought that murderous urge she felt from the main hall. It was coming from the white tiger. Gamwa at this point wondered what had happened in the 2 years she had been gone. But then Gawk came in and told them to stop. Gawk realized that this moment could destroy the entire gang. We have to stop this as soon as possible. Gawk addressed Huck as great, and said he understood his anger. But haven't they resolved this issue? He will take the responsibility and punish them. May he have pity on them. Heck immediately raised his hand to stop Gamwa from getting in. Heck saw that the boy was smart, and thought it over quickly. Heck replied that he understood. He had already spared him, and he thought it wouldn't be hard to do it again, and he asked Gawk to make sure he kept his word and he would let them live. He immediately took Gamwa and carried him away. Heck told them they were never here. Gawk said he was announcing the whole general message. They've disappeared, that's impossible. Gawk asked too, where were they? It was unthinkable. It was the first time he had witnessed a universal message. Arriving in the forest, Gamwa spoke to the white tiger, and asked what had happened to him in the last 2 years. Did he really get a great chance? Does he even possess universal telepathy? Heck replied that he didn't know what the chief patrolman was talking about. He had already said that he didn't know any white tiger. Gamwa asked him that she looked like a fool. Why then did he answer and call out the number 5? Heck replied that whatever it was time for her to go back. They were still not their territory, and let her keep her status in mind. Gamwa asked number 100, is he worried about her? He cut that guy because he called her names, right? I wonder how angry he got. Heck replied for her to stop calling him number 100. He forgot about those days, and then Gamwa told Heck to get a grip. He must forget about number 5. There is an order of demon extermination. It is an elite group of assassins created by the Murim Alliance in response to the unification of the Demon Alliance assassins. It consisted of 99 Chengs divided into 4 levels. Each was assigned a number from 2 to 100 according to their skills. Number 100. He was the weakest member of the Demon Annihilation Order. The order was divided into 2 castes. The first included high-ranking members. They had the right to command the group during missions. They were masters above 40. Talents from prestigious martial arts sects and clans. They were trained in special techniques from an early age and had access to elixirs. The second caste included the remaining members of medium and small martial arts sects, clans, or academies. In truth, the members of the lower caste were only minor pawns in the hands of the privileged. For example, number 97, who joined the order not long ago, died first. Number 19 had to take on an impossible mission. And number 97 took the hit. The target eventually escaped despite victim number 97. That night, number 19 mocked number 97. Number 19 said that they would have accomplished the mission if it hadn't been for that nitwit. Failed because the fool couldn't block the kick. Number 100 grabbed him and said the problem was just his plan. After all, number 19 persisted in leading everyone forward when ordered to retreat. Number 97 saved his life and died because of his selfishness. That was reckless of him. And then someone punched him and asked him what he was talking about. That fool died because he was weak. What's he accusing him of? Number 19 continued fighting and asked Heck how dare he look down on him? Number 100, who came out of the middle of nowhere, thinks he's on the same level as him, the heir of the Jean clan? And then Gamwa came and told number 29 not to be conceited. Number 19 was surprised to see number 5. Number 19 asked her if she had seen how the redneck behaved. He's only the 100th. Out of nowhere came number 8 and asked him, redneck? Is that who he was talking about? Number 19 got scared and replied that no, and that's not what he meant to say. Those two shut up number 19 so easily. They were strong and he was weak. Since then, he had often been sent on deadly missions, always put on the front lines, given the most risky assignments. He was on the verge of death countless times. Number 5 asked him what he wanted to be killed. Or does he have 10 lives? How many times has he been shot this month? And why go that far? Number 100 replied that if he didn't, then the other low-rankers would be killed. He needs to get stronger. Number 5 got angry and replied that he had made up his mind well and let him do what he wanted. But she would be with him on every mission he went on. Number 100 was surprised and asked why her. Number 5 replied that she didn't want him to die. Number 8 turned to the guys and asked, what about his? And so several years went by. And no one below level 70 survived, except for him alone. He had accomplished more missions than anyone in this organization. There came a point when people stopped calling his weakest number 100, he became the last number 100, and she was there the whole time. Number 8 kept asking, what about him? One fine day number 5 was practicing and told number 100 that she liked him and smiled. Number 100 immediately reciprocated and told her that she reciprocated him too. They immediately hugged and kissed. At this time number 8 always went with them as a third extra, and at this point he was sitting in a tree watching them. Number 8 was getting excited and told them to get a room already. While number 100 was enjoying little moments of happiness in the middle of hell, he showed up. Number 100 received a piece of paper and asked the man, what is it? A man named Mujan Cheonhajeil, the god of Mka, arrived at his place. Mujan said this is his certificate of his military service. He can leave the war and return to his hometown. It is a reward for a number of successful missions and contributions to the common cause. Number 100 asked if there was any particular reason for his suggestion. Mujan replied that the guy is feisty, just as he had heard. That's fine and he can get right to the point. Mujan replied that it's about number 5. He wants number 100 to end all relations with his daughter, Mujan Gamwei. Number 100 was surprised, for he didn't know that number 5 was his daughter. Mujan said that surely a mere redneck from a rural academy couldn't easily get close to her. Furthermore, it seems that number 100 is unaware that she is engaged to Daesahyeong, the grandson of the head of the Mirima Alliance, Daewonma. But since number 100 has done a lot for the Alliance, and has risked his life for Gamwa many times, he makes him an offer. If he realizes his situation, he will leave this place now and don't even let him think of getting close to her. Number 100 replied that if that was the reason, he would have to give up. Mujan was surprised and asked what? Number 100 responded that even though he may be father number 5, he cannot control the feelings of his adult child. Since she is promised to another, he will listen to her opinion on the matter and act accordingly. If she chooses her fiancé, he will quietly leave. But otherwise, Mujan didn't listen to him any further, and immediately pulled out his blade and placed it under number 100's neck. Mujan asked, would he leave him a choice? Number 100 understood that this sword was under Chi control. Number 100 said, what does it mean that the famous sword god of the right faction is threatening the newcomer like a thug? Mujan held up his fingers and said that, as expected, the last number 100 is different. But he's too naive. He considers Gamwa's opinion, but what about her happiness? Ever since she was a child, she grew up in abundance. Such an orphan can't even imagine what it's like. What can number 100 offer her? Of course, she'll be happy first. Just being together as if the whole world were at her feet. But over time, she would slowly begin to remember her past life. The delicacies she enjoyed. The dresses and jewelry she enjoyed, an eternal source of wealth. And number 100 will remain the same. He will be troubled by the thought. Is his wife happy? Would she sacrifice too much for someone like him? Would she hold a grudge? What if she leaves him? Mujan said that their 3 Gamwa missions came back with serious injuries. I'm sure number 100 knows about them. Number 100 was surprised and asked what was that too. Mujan replied yes, that, and all 3 times she was injured trying to save him. Mujan said to number 100, let me ask him again. Does he really think he can make her happy? At that moment, number 100 said he was furious, but he still couldn't answer. Whether he had forgotten that time in the demon extermination order, or was he simply refusing to accept? There has always been a vast gulf between number 5 and number 100. Mujan said he's giving him a month. He'll leave the certificate here and advises him to think hard. A month later, he was assigned a mission. All this time he had been training, and could not forgive himself for such a thing. Having done a lot of work and always remembered Gamwa telling him that she was glad he was still in one piece. All these years he'd been tormented and couldn't get her out of his head. After all, he was the one who left her and said nothing. In the Shaoyao Mountains near Yangzhou County. In the forest, a group of warriors were following someone. A warrior asked where did they go. The boy replied that he was sure they had gone this way. Who knew they were like ghosts? The guy turned to the commander and said that he had to stop the chase. The commander asked why he thought that. The guy replied that if they went any further, they would end up in Yangzhou. Not enough for the Iron Blood Battalion to find out about it. The commander got angry and said that because of the conditional non-aggression pact. And then a stranger came up to them with his weapon and told them not to worry. The stranger said he had come personally to send them to the other side. The commander said it's the enemy. And have everyone prepare for battle. The stranger started laughing and said that if they resist, it won't hurt. Just let them stand still, they will die anyway. The commander said he was an arrogant jerk. Surely he can handle the top 5 from the Boundless Mansion alone? The stranger laughed and replied that they were all naive and that was very nice. I wonder who said he was the only one? The commander immediately got scared and saw a group of men surround them and said it was an ambush. Before I could tell them to fight back, the first blood was immediately spilled, killing everyone who was there. But other people came across them and said they were from the Boundless Mansion. Necks starting to stiffen, pupils still clear. Looks like they were killed a little over 2 hours ago. And there's no sign of a fight. They must have been killed quickly. Mask and his group asked if it was them again. The guy replied that it was most likely. The wounds are the same as on the corpses in Yuna County. Mask said they rushed out as soon as they got word from them. And they were still one step behind. Mask ordered the guy to round up all the beggars in the vicinity and sweep everything within a 2-mile radius. Have him bring anything that looks suspicious, even dog shit. And don't forget to notify the Unlimited Mansion. Mask realized that this group was involved in illegal trafficking. They've been after them for 6 months now. This is the worst, and this time he got to sit on their tail. He immediately drank the alcohol and spit it out immediately, saying he had touched his alcohol again. At this time, the Dragon and Tiger Academy was having a training session. Heck was telling them to demonstrate the first stance of the dragon and tiger sword. That was followed by the second sword stand of dragon and tiger. Heck looked at all of them and was very happy that they were doing great in their training. Heck saw the joints and said they're in the middle of the 3rd row. Wrong hand position. And then Gamwa came up to him and said that the academy seemed to be thriving. Right, Heck? Heck was surprised that she was still here. Heck said there used to be more students. I'm sure things will be back to normal soon. Gamwa replied that it was incredible, such love and pride in the academy. Heck said that the memories of this place. Gamwa asked Heck that he treasured them as much as he did. Heck said something simple, memories that he should forget about. Gamwa clenched her fist and said it was a lie. She had already said it, his lies wouldn't work on her. Gamwa asked why is he behaving like this? Shouldn't she know about the problem in order to understand and find a solution? Heck asked her why she was asking. Does she really want to know the truth? Gamwa let a tear fall and replied that she was asking him to tell her the story already. Heck replied that he was suffering. When he sees her, the memories of those days seize him, a pain he never wants to experience again. When she suffers because of him, unbearable memories. Where she's sad for him. He remembers the best moments of his life, and that he might make her miserable again. He's afraid that this hell will resume. That it might become her hell. Heck asked. His words still sounded like a lie. Gamwa cried and looked at him with her sweet eyes. Heck turned around and said that's why he was asking her to go back to where she belonged. Gamwa immediately held out her hand and told him to wait. But Heck didn't stop and she was tormented by those words. Heck stepped aside and said that he had done the right thing. If he wanted to end this, he needed to put a stop to it. Only in this way, number 5, Gamwa will be able to live her life. Soon she will forget him and live happily ever after. And then in a moment someone sent a sword at him. Heck was surprised and felt it coming and caught it. Heck turned around and saw the older dragon warrior, Papa. He asked her why she had thrown her sword at the younger one. Papa replied that he should follow her. They immediately went together into the deserted field. He immediately began to wonder why she had brought him here. Papa told Heck to pick up his sword. Heck asked why did she bring him here? And why does she ask him to pick up his sword? What does she want? Papa didn't bother to answer, and with her staff she immediately slammed it into the ground, but let her energy flow through it. The force was so great that Heck felt it on his body. Papa told him again to raise his sword. Heck asked that this was all about the senior Murim Alliance patrolman, number 5? Popa replied that if he was going to be stubborn, he'd better get ready. She would make him bear his sword. Popa didn't wait for him and immediately attacked, but Hek stood to the last and dodged at the last moment. Hek was a little surprised that she dared herself to do such a thing. And in a moment she made another attack, but Hek crouched down and she missed. Popa started to do something about it, and used all her energy and sent it into her staff. Hek didn't dodge and with his wooden sword stopped her attack. But he didn't dare to attack her. Popa said she has been taking care of the young mistress since she could not yet walk, and she can say with confidence that she has dedicated her entire life to her safety and happiness. And who the hell did Hek think he was to hurt the young mistress like that? Hek resisted her energy, and slowly entered the sand with his feet. Popa said that the young mistress was the strongest and bravest person she knew. Whenever her father punished her severely or scolded her, she never blinked an eye. She had never seen her in such a state. So don't let Hek blame her for this cruelty. Hek immediately saw that she was using chi amplification. Popa got angry and used special dragon technique number 3. Dragon dance. Hek didn't run away and with his energy he fended off her most difficult attack. Popa was surprised to see that he was in good condition. Popa saw him and said he was a crazy fool. He took the hit on his body and didn't even move. Popa thought, has he really learned the Shaolin Water body technique? Hek asked her, was she satisfied? Hek said he guessed that was enough to blow off steam. Now he's gonna go. Popa got angry and asked him what he thought he was so outstanding? Who does he think he is, you arrogant brat? Popa asked him how dare he bring the young mistress to tears. Hek replied that that was the reason. Popa was surprised and asked him what he said. Hek replied that it happens because he is who he is. Popa saw Hek walk away from the battlefield and thought, what kind of monster is he? He never drew his sword. Hek came to the academy and immediately threw away his clothes, and dressed in clean clothes so that the others wouldn't see that he had fought someone. But it wasn't that simple. He started spitting blood. He realized he'd be in a lot of trouble if she really wanted to kill him. But now it's finally over. There was no reason to see her anymore. And lying on the couch, he said goodbye. But then someone knocked on his door and said it was Kang. Hek was surprised and answered him to come in. Kang said that someone from the Boundless Mansion had come. Hyuk was very much surprised and asked what? The Boundless Mansion is a martial faction founded 80 years ago by Cheonhajeil, a disciple of the Confronting sect, in the eastern region of Gansu. They once had a high position comparable to the 9 great sects. They had allies and active support from the Mujan alliance. They were the ones who encountered the Iron Blood Battalion, one of the 4 troops of the Demon Alliance that dominated the western regions of Gansu. However, he had heard that they had significantly decreased in size now. Even if the Confronting sect was closed down, they had fallen on hard times. Hek wondered what they could possibly need from such a martial academy. The head of the governing officials of the Boundless Mansion Song asked, was it true that the Heavenly Sword Goddess was here now? The teacher asked him how he knew about it. Sun replied that that was how the rumors were true. He came though he thought they were false. Song approached the head of the academy, Cheon, that he was asking him to help him. No, let them help the Boundless Mansion. He asked Chan to arrange for him to be met by the senior patrolling alliance Murim. He would never forget his favor. Hek realized that wouldn't work for him. After all, he'd barely managed to end things with her. Chan answered him that there wasn't much he could do to help. Sung replied that he knew it well. The very fact that he's going to try to talk to her is already encouraging. They're desperate. After all, a drowning man will even grasp at straws. Hek asked Manager Song if he could say something. As he knows, the senior patrolman is in charge of the northern territories. If someone of her status gets involved in the affairs of the West, it will look like an abuse of power, and could cause a number of problems. The western region has its own senior patrolman. I heard that he is from a middle clan, and is known for his success and fairness. Wouldn't it be better to ask him for help? And then Gamwa came in and said that she didn't know Master Hyuk was so concerned about her. But only she could judge whether this request exceeded her authority. Song was surprised and asked if it was really her. Sung said, he is the head manager of the Boundless Sun Mansion. Paying his respects to the senior patrolman of the north of the Murim Alliance. Gamwa also introduced herself, and said she welcomed him too. She offered to sit down so that Sung could tell her the details. Gamwa saw that teacher Jong had poured her tea and said that their tea was always so good. Jong thanked the senior patrolman for the praise. She could see Hek was angry and worried about her. Heck wondered what number 5 thought this time. An hour earlier, there had been a conversation between teacher Jeong and Gamwa. Jeong asked her if she was leaving. Gamwa replied that was correct. She has already done a lot of damage. She has a lot to take care of in the north. Also, it was time for her to go back to where she belonged. The teacher immediately realized that Heck had done something. Jeong told the senior patrolman that he had a request. Gamwa was surprised and asked what kind. Chan replied, could she come with him? And immediately they went outside and Chan led her to a place. Gamwa was surprised and asked what the hell is this place? Chan led her to the place where Heck was transferring his anger. Jeong replied that they had found it 5 days ago. Gamwa realized that was just when she had arrived here. Jeong said that someone destroyed their walking place. These sword marks. They speak of great power. But it must be someone from the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. Most likely Heck. Gamwa immediately realized that her guess was right. Jeong said that he was sure she was suffering a lot because of him. Gamwa immediately began to deny it. Teacher Jeong said that he had always been like this since he was a child. Stubborn and hiding his intentions, never showing his feelings. Often he acts thoughtlessly, not taking into account the feelings of others. But his logic is hard to argue with. So it was not easy for him, as his teacher, to control him. Gamwa replied that she definitely did. Sometimes he's so annoying that she just wants to hit him. He's such a narcissist. And then Gamwa realized that he had said something unnecessary. And realized that Heck was still his apprentice. The teacher said he was a little embarrassed, but could she take a look at his sword wielding? Gamwa replied that of course she could. The teacher immediately began to demonstrate his abilities with the branch. Gamwa understood and could see even from his strut. Solid, clean and natural. He is skilled with a sword and understands the nuances of martial arts. Gamwa saw that the teacher was working simply and discreetly. No fluctuations or changes in his chi, no deleterious effects. His dignity as an academy teacher is obvious. The movements are natural, he must have practiced for ages. Teacher Jeong said that Hyuk is stronger and braver than the others. However, he is much more cowardly than the others. Gamwa thought those movements looked very familiar. Jeong said that he was always afraid of losing someone. He was always afraid that someone important to him would get hurt. He echoes the footsteps of sword number 100. He is always worried and anxious because he keeps his cool, and he's sure it was his sword dance. And he was gripped by fear like no other. For he was thinking of someone important to him. Chan stopped, and said that just as he thought, it was impossible for such an old man to repeat it. Chan apologized for a performance unworthy of the standard of a senior patrolman. Gamwa replied that it wasn't. His sword dance was the best. Teacher asked that Gamwa said that she would go where she was supposed to be, right? Gamwa replied that was correct. Jeong said he doesn't know where a senior patrolman is supposed to be. But he hopes that it coincides with her wishes. Gamwa said that's right. She chooses where she is supposed to be. Gamwa asked Manager Sung that he mentioned that he wanted to tell her something. Sung replied that this was correct. Their boundless mansion is in such a predicament that he had to come and kneel in front of her even though it's inappropriate. Gamwa replied that as Master Heck had said, she was a senior patroller of the Murim North. Her options here are limited. Still, is there something he wants to ask? Sun replied that he has already submitted dozens of petitions to the Murima Alliance. The senior patrolman of the West refuses to meet with him. They've been waiting a year for an answer. When Gamwa heard a year, she realized it was a cause for concern. Usually it takes 3 months, 6 months at the most. If it has come to this, it means they are either being ignored or there is a snag in the process. Gamwa asked him what he expected from her. Son replied that here is the letter. And he asks her to help him so that it can be reviewed by the Murim Alliance management. Sun said that after the war, the Kongtong sect closed down, and the support they received from the Murim Alliance stopped. From Boundless, the mansion was abandoned to its fate. At the same time, the Iron Blood Battalion has grown stronger, and is expanding its sphere of influence. At this rate, they'll take over the entire Jerian. But that's not all. Recently, a strange force has emerged, a disturbing force. It's a secret powerful group. They've already killed many of their masters. Boundless Mansion can't deal with this alone, and he hopes that the Alliance will conduct a thorough investigation in Gansu Province. He immediately realized that things were bad. After all, This was only a problem for a part of Gansu, namely the western region. Boundless Mansion's request is reasonable and important, but the senior patrolman of the north will not be able to help. What's more, the senior west patrolman is suspiciously avoiding the issue, which also won't please number 5. Which means she'll say no. And then Gamwa thought and replied that it was about time she was going to visit everyone, so she would be able to pass it on. Hake was definitely surprised at this point, and could not believe his ears. Sun got excited and asked the senior patrolman, would she really do that? Gamwa asked. Shouldn't she be compensated for the hardships of skipping due process? Son replied that if she asked for compensation, they would try to prepare an appropriate reward. Gamwa answered no. She is not in truth getting something from the Boundless Mansion. They are Murim martial arts masters, act according to their traditions. A favor for a favor, a request for a request. Gamwa said fortunately, there seems to be someone suitable here. If Master Hayek standing there promised to listen to her request whenever and whatever she asked, she would gladly accept Manager Song's request. Gamwa asked him what he would say. Popa blushed at this time and had no idea what she was thinking. However, she managed to see the guy's stupid face, and then Hex said for them to wait for a while. Logically, since the Boundless Mansion's request, don't they owe them? Some approached Hack and said that he was begging him. Let him agree to her demand, let him help them with that, and he will help in establishing the Chamber of Commerce that the Dragon and Tiger Battle Academy so desires. Heck immediately thought about the Chamber of Commerce. He realized that it was his teacher's long-time dream. Having a Chamber of Commerce would guarantee the Academy's income and give them a boost to their development. Teacher Zhang said not to burden himself too much. The request came to him, it's only his decision. It would be great to open a Chamber of Commerce, right? Heck immediately became indignant and yelled at the teacher. Zhang answered him so he wouldn't feel obligated. In parting, Teacher Chan told the girls that they were honored to be accepted into the Dragon and Tiger Academy. Gamwa replied that she should be the one to thank them. She hoped that the next time they met they would do well. Leaving, Popa said that this idiot calls himself a senior student, and he can't even guide them himself. Gamwa told her that everything is fine, let her leave him. Popa asked the lady, is she not angry at all? Gamwa replied that she was not a bit angry. At this time, Heck was in his room saying that judging from his senses, number 5 had left Yanzhou County. Finally, it was all over. He promised to listen to her request. It worried him a little, but they wouldn't have any reason to meet again, would they? Popa asked the lady why she accepted the letter from the Boundless Mansion. Her position does not allow her to interfere in the affairs of the West. Gamwa replied that it was all right. She had one idea. Popa was surprised and asked what it was. Gamwa replied that it was simple. She will ask the Alliance to transfer her to the Western region. Popa was surprised and asked her what she said. Heck told the guy he told him more than once. Don't make noise in the Sacred Academy. He comes from the Dragon and Tiger Academy. Can't even that be respected? Heck's best friend, Yangzhou County Office Chief Inspector Cha, asked Heck for forgiveness. Heck said that was the place to start. He would forgive him this time, but from now on, he would keep quiet. Cha told him to leave those silly jokes alone. He's in a very tight spot. Heck replied that he thought he could help him if he said the joke was funny. Cha started laughing loudly and asked if it was enough. Heck replied that he would listen to him and then decide. Cha told me that 2 days ago, 3 courtesans disappeared nearby. It was at the small incense house, the best brothel in Yangzhou County. There was a courtesan named Erin. She was exceptionally good at playing the zither and was especially beloved by the county officials. He was ordered to return it within 3 days. Today is the deadline, and he hasn't found a trace of her. Let Heck do what he wants, but he's asking him to find her. He's always been good at finding clues. Heck asked how they disappeared. Cha replied that 3 days ago, from 9 to 11 p.m., they had entertained 3 vendors. Apparently very noisy, and then the rooms were suddenly quiet. Even after 2 hours, no one came out. The manager went to check, by which time they had disappeared without a trace. The manager and the guards said they had never seen these traitors before. They were dressed as traitors, but there was no evidence of their activities. Cha said he was sure they were responsible. They were probably martial artists in disguise. They probably used some technique to sneak out through the window. Cha asked Heck, is he wrong? Heck replied that it's amazing, Cha talks about obvious things like it's something amazing. Heck said that obviously they were martial arts masters. Cha got excited and said it was all his incredible intelligence. Heck said he could see some footprints behind that building. Cha replied that he didn't see anything there. Heck said that the yellow sand here was not their law. They didn't know they'd leave footprints because it was dark. The Nai must have been a great craftsman to have made it this far. Cha was surprised and asked him what he said. Heck replied that he just needed to find the girls today, right? He would get them back as fast as he could. But then Cha hugged him and told him to stop. He asked Hayak what he was doing. Wasn't he the one who said to find them faster? Cha told Hak that he couldn't. Even with orders from the county officials, it was too much for him. He'd better take a whipping or he's out of the academy. Heck said they're martial artists? He'll die like a dog if he follows them. Though he may rule them, he knows he is but a worm in the murim. He has a conscience too. He would never ask a lowly ant like him to take care of rabid dogs. Heck replied that Cha didn't know it, but he wasn't the same as he used to be. He's not going to die. Let Cha not worry and let him go. Cha asks Heck what he would order him to do if he just left like that. He made a mistake, so asks him. Heck immediately elbowed him and told him to knock it off. Then he ran off after the thieves. Team Mask was at this time in the crime scene of Mount Xiaoyao's boundless mansion. Mask said that in short, they couldn't find anything. The guy replied that they were sorry. After all, even their dogs couldn't hit the trail, and he assumes they were well trained. Mask replied that he hardly thought they were about to capture them. But then Gamwa came and said that they seemed to have quite a lot on their minds. The Mask immediately turned around and saw Gamwa. The girl replied that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Grandfather Divine Beggar Ghost Mask. Mask said that if they came to see Gamurin, they wasted their time. He is in Yunha County, dealing with request number 100. Gamwa replied that that wasn't why she was here. Just wanted to see Grandpa Ghost Mask while she was around. The Mask told her not to talk nonsense. She doesn't know how to act innocent. If she is here to meet him, then she has something to ask for. Gamwa got angry and asked what was wrong with her behavior. Gamwa said she knew it couldn't be spent, Grandpa. He's right. She asked him, as one of the elders of the beggar gang, to write her a letter of recommendation. Of course, she wouldn't expect him to do it for nothing. She would offer her help with whatever it was, within reason. Mask asked help to him. Gamwa replied that she was sure they were well aware of the tracker of myriad versts. Hawksham myriad versts. It's the greatest bloodhound in the Central Plains, won't miss a trail, not even a ghostly one. Mask asked why she would mention an old man who doesn't leave his neighborhood in the Murim Alliance. Gamwa said then what did they know about his secret disciple whom he had trained personally? He ended up surpassing even his teacher. Mask asked surprised, what, that arrogant fool left an heir who surpassed him? Gamwa replied that unfortunately she couldn't tell, not even him, grandfather. He won't show his face until all of Jianghu is in danger. Mask said that there was no point in it then. Gamwa replied, what if she said that the heir of the elder had taught her the tracking technique? Popa turned to Mistress and said it was too much. Everything has a limit, even her jokes. Gamwa turned around and asked what did he say. Popa replied that it had always been with her, apart from the 5 years spent in the Murim Alliance. When did she allegedly meet this man? Gamwa replied that this was the plain truth. Mask told his own that it was time to leave. Gamwa yelled to her grandfather to stop, and she wasn't lying about it. Mask paused and said that if this happened anywhere near 5 years ago, she must have been following orders to exterminate demons back then. Mask remembered and said he was a teacher at the time. Come to think of it, he held one guy in high esteem. He never once misjudged the enemy's surveillance in all 5 years. Mask asked if it could be number 100? Gamwa realized that she had been exposed, and even blushed. At this time, Heck was following Cha's order and spoke in the forest, saying that he was sure they had gone this way. Who would have thought they would have the courage to hide so close to Xiaoyao Mountain? Whatever Heck had said, they'd thought it through carefully. It was usually much easier to track someone in the mountains or deep woods than in the city. I mean, no one really walks around here, but how could they vanish without a trace in a place like this? Is it possible that they did? Heck heard something and opened his eyes. It turned out to be the old forest ranger Cha. He could not hold on and fell to the ground with the firewood. Heck immediately ran in shouting Grandpa Cha. He asked if he was okay. Cha replied that it was nothing. He must have just stumbled. Nowadays, he pitches all the time. Maybe it's because he hasn't coached Noni enough, or maybe it's a matter of age. Hek was surprised and asked Grandpa Cha in old age. He practically lives on Xiaoyao Mountain. Cha asked, who can beat time? They all eventually get old and weak. Hek laughed and said he couldn't be. I mean, he's the strongest forester in the world. Cha sighed and replied that he shouldn't even mention it. Maybe it's the age thing. His eyesight isn't what it used to be. He's always bumping into things or getting hit. And there's even been times when he's been lost. Hek asked him, had anything happened recently? Had Grandpa Cha noticed anything unusual? Cha asked Hek what he was saying was unusual. He thought and remembered that that house was haunted. Does he remember the place where he used to take his students and friends to catch ghosts? Hek asked what Grandpa said about the abandoned house in the clearing. Yes, he remembers. Cha said he suddenly disappeared. Hek asked that someone took it down. Cha replied that he didn't know. He has never seen anyone there, even though he walks here every day. But a few days ago, he suddenly just disappeared. Maybe there really is a ghost or something. Hek told his grandfather that he needed to go home and rest. He'll feel better tomorrow. And have him drop off a bunch of firewood at the academy on the way. Here's the money for the firewood. Cha was surprised and asked, a silver coin? Isn't that too much for firewood? Hek replied that the rest was payment for helping him. Cha wondered how it was that Hek had helped him. Cha decided that he should buy some protein supplements. Hek went to the house and climbed up a tree to see that it had indeed disappeared. The bushes even grew like that, as if the house had never existed. Hek realized and said it's definitely a hiding place. It distorts all the senses. He's sure Grandpa Cha was getting lost and falling over because of it. Hek immediately realized that this was no ordinary kidnapping. And he can't let such suspicious people be in Yangzhou County. There was a guard sitting in that house at the time. And then the guy told the other one to wake up, because someone was coming. The guy asked, what is it? It seems it's just a student of the local combat academy. He won't be able to see anything from behind cover. What's the problem? The other guy asked, doesn't he think he's walking right towards them? The guy replied that was nonsense. Even if he somehow gets through, the warp would send him the other way, and have the guy look at something stopping him. Maybe he bumped into a rock or something. He'll step aside and then Hek stared at the spot. The guards immediately noticed that something was definitely wrong. Hek saw everything, and in a moment smiled and sent several attacks at the defense. The guards immediately drew their weapons and realized they were in danger. Hek managed to get through their defenses, and found himself behind the guard. He didn't speak to him, and rolled his head. Hek said their skills were crap, but their sword was pretty decent. And then a stranger came out and said they had an unexpected visitor. Hek asked the guy that he was the last demon of the Annam ghostly trio. Why are the Annam people hiding in Gansu? The boy was surprised and replied that Hek was an unusual student since he knew about them, the three brothers, and then they could waste no time getting to know each other. The second brother asked, how did he find them? Could he be from the Boundless Mansion? The third brother laughed and said that it looked like the rumors about the Boundless Mansion weren't lying. Who would have thought that they would send such a sleuth? And then Hek immediately thought of the Boundless Mansion. Could it really be those scumbags that were secretly attacking them? Not surprising, of course. After all, in the Murim South, the ghostly trio are notorious for first-class assassinations and cunning coordination techniques, and even an expert from the Boundless Mansion would have a hard time dealing with them. Well, that has nothing to do with him. Hek asked, were they the ones who kidnapped the three courtesans? The first brother was surprised and asked him, what? Immediately all three of them started laughing loudly. The first brother apologized and said that he hadn't expected such a question. Who would have thought that he would have come all this way to save the girls? The third brother asked, is he really a pimp? Must miss them. Well, they were pretty good for village oafs. Their clothes were immaculate. Hek said they'd locked 12 people in the basement. Not counting the 3 of them, there are 18 more in the house, 30 on the first floor and 5 on the second floor. All of them seemed to be newcomers, masters of the first rank. Hek asked, what are a bunch of guys capable of taking out serious fighting groups doing on the edge of a mountain? besides these cheap kidnappings? The third brother replied that he had a rather keen sense of chi. But it was time for him to realize where he had thoughtlessly broken into. Heck said there are a total of 21 masters here. He thinks one hit will be enough. The first brother got angry and said he was an arrogant animal. He seems to be the greatest in the world when it comes to bragging. All of the brothers headed out to attack him. The first brother thought that their technique could easily destroy even a top-ranked martial artist. The second wields extremely fast weapons that most masters of the Central Plains are not accustomed to. The first brother realized that even if he dodged one, the other would get there before he recovered, and at the same time, the other arm of the first attacker will return, even if he manages to dodge another attack. In the moment, the first brother was surprised at what was happening and saw that they didn't even get him with a few attacks. Heck pulled out his sword and was surprised to say that it was much more comfortable than he thought. Even being bad guys, swords were taken care of. Heck went straight to the house and saw that there were people there. Enemies immediately asked who he was. And where is the boss missing? Heck immediately began to kill everyone in order as their head. Heck left only one of them to set up an interrogation. Heck said he had better answer his question. If he was obedient, and he would kill him painlessly. Heck realized he needed information, and those 3 courtesans. At that time, Gamwa and the others were looking for something. Gamwa was staring intently at the ground. Mask asked what was she staring at for so long? Popa replied that no one knows. She could be faking it, and just stalling. Mask said that by the looks of it, she knows what she's doing. They can't be sure. She could be acting at random. Gamwa got angry and asked that if they didn't trust her, should she just stop? Popa replied that she was just surprised that a young mistress could do such a thing. Mask said he never doubted her. Completely trusts her. The others said that who would have thought that she could scare the ghost Mask. This is the ability of the heavenly sword goddess. Mask asked, so did she manage to find out anything? Gamwa replied no. Unfortunately, their trail ends here. Mask got angry and asked what? Gamwa replied that she was sure they were here. But the trail was breaking off. If they were cleaning up the tracks, it would be visible. But even that isn't there. Mask asked, and that's it? Popa also asked, is that even possible? Or is she backing off because she's afraid of being exposed? Gamwa replied that it was impossible. But she found something much more interesting. Their problems were much easier to solve than she had thought. Mask was surprised and asked, really? Gamwa asked them if they wanted to take a look. Mask saw and asked, are those their footprints? They'd been following those guys for 2 days. They don't look like the ones they found at the crime scene. Gamwa said they stretched all the way out and cut off here. The same place where their footprints disappeared. Most likely this person is following them for the same reason they are. Mask was surprised and asked who? Gamwa said 21, 6 centimeters long, 7, 6 centimeters wide. Weight about 97 kilograms. He was standing straight, all evenly spaced. A shoe mark like the people from the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. They belonged to number 100. Heck told the boy that he had better answer his questions. If he would be obedient, and he would kill him painlessly. The guy started laughing and replied that he recognized that he was a monster, but he wouldn't be able to kill him. How do you kill someone who's already dead? And then he started laughing. Heck saw that the guy started spitting blood and turned blue. Heck said he took poison. Who the hell are they to go that far? We need to find the kidnappers first. Huck found it strange that there was a tablecloth in front of him that was hiding something. He immediately opened it and saw that there were pills. Heck smelled it, and immediately realized what it was. But in a moment the pill on his hands vaporized. And he thought, how dare they? In a moment, Heck heard someone talking. He saw the basement, and realized they were all locked downstairs. Heck opened the basement and asked, is anyone here? It's clear now, so. And then before Heck could finish his sentence, the girl jumped on him with a knife. Heck immediately stopped her, and told her that he was asking her to calm down. He had come to rescue them on Cha's orders. Heck started to smile, and in a moment girl didn't hold back and straight up spit in his face. The girl told him not to try to trick her, and called him a pervert. And asked him what he was up to this time? Let her just kill him. And then a girl came out, and asked if it was Heck's brother. The first girl told her not to come out. Aaron said it was brother Heck, right? She immediately threw herself into his arms, and said that he had come to save her. Erin said that she believed he was coming. Hek didn't understand what was going on and asked her who she was. Gamwa asked the boys how they ended up here again. She's sure she was following the trail of number 100. Popa said this was the third time they had seen this stone. She turned to the mistress and told her to just admit what, lie to get a favor. Gamwa replied that she had brought them all here. She was the one who found the footprints of number 100. Popa asked who could be sure that those were his footprints. Mask immediately replied that she was leading them correctly. Gamwa asked surprised, really? But they're stuck in this place. Mask said that of course someone put a distortion array on here. And that must be why they can't track them. Popa asked then what should they do? Should they ask the experts of the Cheonhajeil clan for help? The Mask replied that they couldn't. This case should be handled by a gang of beggars. It doesn't always take machinery to demolish an array. Mask said there's an old expression in the West. Let a man knock and the door will open. The Mask applied his powers and said that if there is an obstacle in front of him, break it. That's what wisdom says. Gamwa wondered if he was trying to break the barrier with brute force. She had never heard of such a method, such a strong inner energy. This is the power of the greatest beggar gang master, one of the 10 Murim experts, and that kind of power could very well break the barrier. The Mask used his power, but did he see something happening? Popa saw it too and said there was a crack in the barrier. Gamwa also said he hadn't struck yet. Could it be the pressure from the energy? Mask replied that it wasn't him. Gamwa asked in surprise it wasn't him? Mask replied that it looked like the guy had already taken care of everything. And at that moment, there was an explosion of beams. The barrier was broken completely. Gamwa thought, what does that mean? This is number 100. Hek asked the girl what she was saying, that snotty geisha student that studied art. The girl answered her brother that it was Aaron. The girl said she felt as if it was just yesterday that he was waiting from the academy and brought rice cakes. Time flies fast. Hek asked that she had finally become a famous singing geisha. The girl replied to her brother that she doesn't sing, and then Hek stopped at what he saw. The girl was also surprised and asked her brother who they were. Gamwa was intensely angry and said that they had met again, dear Master Hek. Hek immediately put the girl down out of fright, not even paying attention to her. Hek said she didn't misunderstand him. He was only carrying her because she had sprained her ankle. Gamwa answered him not to take it into his head. Did she say something? There's nothing between them, is there? Hek asked. Why are they here? Didn't they go to the Murim Alliance? Gamwa asked, why wouldn't she be here? What is the reason? Mask said they had been chasing the same group for a long time. Gamwa was just helping them stop them. Was there anyone suspicious inside besides those girls? Hek replied that if they were talking about those bastards, they were already dead. Mask was surprised and asked that he'd killed them all by himself. Hek replied that he had left one alive for questioning, but he had killed himself by taking poison. Mask asked if there had been anything else strange. Hek thought for a moment, and replied that there was a mountain of aphrodisiac boxes. Mask replied that he knew it. It's them. Gamwa asked who the freaks were. The girls at this time said they stopped hearing them. I mean, they're right in front of them. At this time, Hek used his powers to stun them. The Mask told General Jen to take 10 men with him and find out what poison the suicide used and seize all the aphrodisiac. Hek said he was outnumbered, he had burned them. Mask was surprised and asked what he had just said. Mask asked more, why did he do it? It could have been an important clue. Hek replied that he had taken 1 pill, just in case. Mask immediately laughed, and said he knew he could count on him. Let Hek give it to him, and he would use it to track them down. Hek said he had one condition. Mask was surprised and asked what it was. Hek replied that it was simple. Let them open a begging gang unit here in Yangzhou. Hek said that after the visit of the manager of the Boundless Mansion, he realized something. Apparently, the Murim Alliance had left Yangzhou, maybe even the whole of Gansu. He now has great power in his hands, but the might of the Iron Blood Battalion, the Blood Curse Gang, is eager to take over Yangzhou. If the Iron Blood Battalion intervenes, it won't be easy for him to handle alone. Especially now that they're strong enough to hire a ghostly trio of Anam. Other than a gang of beggars, there is no other reliable defense. Mask asked, what? Did he hear that correctly? Heck wants him to establish a begging gang unit here in Yeonjo County? Heck replied that that was right. If he swore right now, that aphrodisiac would be his. Mask said that even though he was the head of the gang, there was a limit to his power. Besides, the Iron Blood Battalion and Boundless Mansion signed a non-aggression agreement in Yeonjo County. If they settle here, it will look like they want to pick a fight with the Iron Blood Battalion. Heck wondered if the Great Beggar Gang was wary of the Iron Blood Battalion. Gamwa asked him that he was crazy? Mask asked him too, what did he say? Did he just dare to provoke a gang of beggars? Gamwa saw that it's not good. Grandpa is very angry. The pressure is much worse than before. What was Hayek thinking? Heck saw this and told them to let him speak. The food in Yeonjo County is very good. Gamwa got angry and asked what was he carrying? Heck said that there were many traders passing through their county, and they had mastered different ingredients and cooking techniques. He's sure the disciples of the beggar gang will be pleased. Gamwa asked the lunatic to stop. Mask immediately started laughing loudly after Heck's words. Everyone else was surprised and didn't understand what was going on. The Mask said he never met such an industrious fellow. And on second thought he agrees. No beggar would turn down a place with good food. Mask said, but to be fair, he'd have to close those 2 debts of his. Heck thought about it and replied, no problem. And he'd already written them off when he'd promised to find Brother Chan. Mask called him an onion asshole and said he was bound to have the last word. Heck told Mask that he was flattering him. Mask told number 100 to let him ask him something else. Heck immediately gave him permission. Mask asked if the people of Yeonjo County often give money to beggars. Heck replied that everyone here is extremely kind. Mask realized it was a lie, but replied that it was excellent. Mask said he would look forward to eating Yeonjo County food. Mask told Gamwa, since she also managed to help them, he would write her a letter of recommendation for the Western region. Heck asked her what Mask was talking about. A letter of recommendation for the Western region? Gamwa replied that the point was that, and immediately she fell silent. Who was he to ask her, she thought. Heck thought, why did he feel like he had done something wrong? Gamwa immediately got on her horse and told Papa to hurry up. Papa replied that she should wait a minute. Heck got angry in the moment and realized she was really going to transfer to the Western region. The guy told the head that he'd finished the investigation. Found 23 bodies, all killed with a single blow. There were also traces of fire after the aphrodisiac was burned. Looks like there's nothing left. Mask thought and asked the guy, what does he say 23? The guy asked the head, does he really want to establish a department in Yeonjo County? Mask was surprised and asked if he looked like someone who would lie to the younger ones. The boy replied that not at all. That's not what he meant, it's too much of a favor for one aphrodisiac. Mask laughed and asked, wondering if he thought so. Mask said that, for one thing, 300 beggars had been searching for the enemy for a day. In this guy it took half a day. So Gamwa's story about the bloodhound of myriad versts is true. Moreover, he easily dealt with the 23 martial artists guarding the aphrodisiac mountain. Simply put, he's stronger than they thought. It was rumored that he had stumbled upon something interesting, but most importantly, he didn't recoil from his murderous pressure. He just kept talking. The boy asked the head, so he wasn't making concessions? Mask replied that he wasn't going to kill him, but he was extremely angry. Another would have wet his pants in such a situation. But this guy kept talking about the food of Yeonjo County. The guy thinks he was too nice? No. On the contrary. For the favor, they got a talented backup, number 100. At this time in the small incense house, Cha hugged Heck and said that it was as expected. He could be relied upon. Heck replied that if Cha had so much faith in him, why wait here instead of going home? Cha was surprised and asked, what about the kidnappers? Heck replied that he sent them back to where they came from. Cha asked, home? He should have detained them. They must learn the full force of the law. Heck asked, should he bring them? Cha immediately replied out of consternation that he didn't have to. But Heck felt sick at the moment, and almost fainted. Cha held him back and asked what was wrong. Is he alright? Heck thought, is this really the strength of one of the 10 strongest Muram experts? Who knew there would be consequences? Heck replied to the guy that he was fine. He was just dizzy. Cha asked him, what do you mean normal? Did he hurt himself? Didn't bump his head anywhere? Hek replied that it was nothing like that. Cha asked if he'd been beaten up, right? He's right. He's wobbly after being beaten up, that's why he said, you can't be so careless even if you happen to study martial arts. Hek got tired of listening to him, and at one point he flared up and kicked him so hard in the booth that Cha flew several meters backwards. Cha was lying there unconscious, trying to say something to him. Hek, leaving, said that the jerk didn't know when to shut up. Mask said something was 7 years ago. The new gatekeeper of the Alliance had a very capable body. He advised him to join the Demon Extermination Order. Thinking it over, he replied that he might sound presumptuous, but he wanted to ask him for something. He asked that they not use his apprentices in case he suddenly died or they needed another master. They're a small academy with only a couple of students. If any more of them are assigned somewhere else, it will be very hard for their teacher, because he will be left alone. Mask asked, wondering what he thought. Feeling his loyalty to his teacher? It moved him so much that he agreed and promised 3 more favors if he completed the assignment. His only and closest student, on the other hand, has no problem stealing and drinking his teacher's precious drink. The guy replied that he was just looking out for his health. The mask told him to stop talking nonsense. Number 8 asked the teacher, wasn't it expected that a member of the lower-level Demon Extermination Order would die? Then his promise was just a divorce, wasn't it? Mask thought for a moment, and replied to add more weight by a factor of 5. Mask said that Hek was alive anyway, and he'd listen to his request, right? It's the expert's keen eye. He saw a promising guy. Number 8 understood and thought it was somehow unreasonable. The mask replied to the student not to think it was unreasonable, or he would die. Mask asked the disciple, didn't he say that he was close to him those days? He might be the leaders of their squad in Yeonjo County, and he would have to convince not only number 100, but also the rest of the academy. Number 8 was hesitant because he had no experience. Mask said that's how number 100 will become the perfect friend for the begging gang. Number 8 said that the master spoke with an expression as if he was plotting something bad. The beggars immediately started setting up their estates. Number 8 was telling them all to look at that homeless scumbag. He can't do it right. Number 8 told the guy he could have hurt himself. What are the other assholes doing? Hurry up and help him. But then the guys from the academy came up to them and asked who they were to build something like this here. Number 8 asked the guys, is that the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy uniform? They must be Hex students. Number 8 took it as good luck to get close to them. Number 8 said his name was Ge and he was from a begging gang. Kong asked if he could be the infamous Master Ge. Ge replied that their big brother had asked to set up a base here. It seems he forgot to tell them about it. Kong said they were terribly sorry. They didn't recognize such a great man who could tear apart a bear with his bare hands. Ge asked why they were acting like that. Ge said they're all part of the traditional faction of the same province. Let them not make a fuss. He wondered why they were trembling so much. He said that in the end, he was just another poor beggar, wasn't he? Hek walked over too and asked the guys what they were doing here. He stepped away briefly to patrol the area and wondered where they had all gone. Kong told Hyuk to make sure his older brother was watching his words. This is the famous Gu from the begging gang. And they heard that he caught a bear with his bare hands and ate it right in front of its cubs. Hek didn't understand and asked what the hell? He turned to Ge and called him a jerk, asking if he was bullying his students. Ge asked Hek what was he trying to say. He was just greeting them. They were the ones freaking out. Hek asked, didn't he know his face was scary? Ge asked, what's wrong with his face? Hek replied that he looked like some kind of gangster. Hek turned back around and asked the guys what they were staring at. They need to get back soon. Morning practice is almost over. He'll be along shortly. He said he hadn't even gotten close to them yet. The guys immediately replied that he was coming. He was shouting goodbye for them to come back for more. It would be great if they brought some food next time. Khan asked the other brother, but didn't the older brother and that man seem pretty close? Taehong said he thought. He doesn't even realize what's going on. The third brother asked, isn't that a relief? With a gang of beggars in the courtyard, they no longer have to worry about the great power. Now he could sleep in peace. He asked Hyuk if he was satisfied. Now his students were relieved, just as he wanted them to be. And then Hek turned to him. But Ge said he was not to be thanked. Hek said that wasn't the point. Would Mangi do something about their stench? It's traveling all the way to the academy. He'll have them get some water so everyone can wash up. Gi said it was Hek who asked to set up a base near their academy. And beggars have merit. Hek ever seen a clean homeless person with no odor? A beggar has to love and embrace his scent. Hek said that even their virtues are poor. Gi replied not to speak in that tone of voice as if he were hovering in thought. Gi said that whatever it is, that missing student he was asking about, there is a problem. Hek told Gi just not to tell him that something had happened to him, okay? Gi replied that they didn't know that, but it's like he vanished. They're sure he used to work as a temporary gatekeeper in Yunha County. But one day, he suddenly disappeared. Even his employers don't know where he is. The three who shared a room with him were hurt on the job. It's not a nice thing to go around asking about. No matter how you look at it, his student's disappearance is not a simple matter. Hek said it turns out they haven't been able to find him yet. He's got it all figured out. Let them keep working harder. The officials will be here soon, he must go. Gi said he had something else to say. Hyok turned around and replied that if Gi thought Brother Jong was dead, or he should give up, he'd better keep his mouth shut. Hek says that the bodies of the other mercenaries were found, but so no Brother Chan, so he's still alive. He just tells him not to draw conclusions from unclear circumstances. Ge said, keeping his cool by being impatient. He wasn't going to say anything like that. Could he stay calm? Ge said that they had barely managed to find someone. Hek asked him, what did he say? Ge said this guy has anencephaly. There's no way they can talk to him. But he's been saying the same thing ever since they showed him the picture of Chan. He said that the senior disciple would come for sure. Hek came to the teacher and said that he would like to go to Yunha County. The teacher asked, had he learned something about Taran's whereabouts? In that case, did that mean Hek would be able to find him and bring him home? Hek replied that he could not say what the journey would bring. However, as long as he lived, Brother Taran would surely return. During this time, the people who kidnapped Taran bullied him and gave him so much that he had to kill everyone to stay alive. One of the remaining guys was suffering and saying he didn't want to die. Taran realized that he had to do it to survive. The boy was in great agony and begged Taran to spare him. But Taran raised his knife and stabbed him in the back. The watchers were no longer surprised, and the masked man said that once again he had won. The boy replied that he had indeed. The masked man said that this guy is a very good product. And everyone calls him John Taran. Hek at this time had already reached Gansu province, Yunha County. He said that this county was definitely more prosperous than Yangzhou. In a moment, Hek stopped and saw that there was a luxurious carriage in front of him. Even the coachmen were dressed in first-class silk. Who would have thought it? The head of this wagon immediately picked up on the fact that someone was gawking at them. Hek decided that he would just forget. No need to tangle with them. Just then someone from the wagon asked Yenji, is something wrong? Yenji replied that nothing was wrong. It seemed that someone was watching them, but it was just a guy from the village martial arts academy. He told the young mistress not to worry about it. The mistress was surprised and asked, is that so? Mistress thought and replied that that man intrigued her. Yenji asked, should they catch him? Mistress said no and replied to leave him. Mistress said that for some reason she had a feeling that she and he would meet again. And things would go differently. Hek did not stop and went on his search. But on the way someone stopped him and asked him how he was doing. Hek didn't expect this and didn't realize who he was. Then the guy asked, is Master Hek from Yangzhou standing in front of him? Does he have any change? Hek pulled it out and asked the guy, is this enough? The guy immediately realized it was from the ghost mask. The guy replied that it was more than enough. Hek said that it just so happened to be his first time in Yunha County. Why not show him around? The guy was surprised and agreed. Hek asked what's interesting about Yunha County. Let him tell him about the troops here. The guy replied that Yunha County is like Yangzhou County. Yunha is considered a neutral zone between the Iron Blood Battalion and the Boundless Mansion, but it's actually under the control of the Blood Curse Gang, so it's safer to think of it as Iron Blood Battalion lands. There had once been a couple of traditional sects and clans here, but they were attacked by vagrants and had to shut down. Hek realized at once that this was just like it was in Yangzhou. Hek asked if the institution where Brother Jong had to work was connected to the Blood Curse Gang. The guy replied that it seems like they pay tribute, but there's no other connection. That establishment is clean. Heck suggested to him that they go see the man. Who says he knew his student? The guy replied to just follow him. At this time the guy was beating up the younger guy and asking that he had eyes for beauty? How dare he walk on after crashing into him? Junior was crying and saying he was in pain. And that guy is a bad person. The guy said he looks like he's got a problem at home? Does he even know who's standing in front of him? Junior said he's bad. He's hitting Cheon. Let the people punish him. The guy kept beating him up and saying that the freak still didn't get it. People were asking, what if he dies like that? The guy asked Cheongu what happened. Cheongu turned around and saw Oh. Heck said he was a master from Yeonjo County. Is that their guy being beaten up there? Jonggu replied that that was correct. The thing was that he was just walking and tripped. It just so happened that he fell on a master from the Blood Curse gang. Heck replied that he understood and would figure it out. And they could go. And then at the guy's last punch, Heck grabbed him and said he thought enough was enough. The others said it was amazing. What was that technique? The guy asked Heck, and how dare he tangle with someone from the Blood Curse gang? He felt that Heck had an incredible grip. There was no way he could pull out his fist. Heck replied that someone had just accidentally bumped into him. Should the Blood Curse gang get involved? Heck said all's well that ends well, right? The boy immediately took up his blade, and Heck stopped him. Heck said he seemed too angry to make the right decision. He thought it would be better to be blunt. Heck said that if he just pulls out his sword, he'll die right away. He doesn't want to cause more trouble, so let him go. The guy immediately realized that he was facing a master. He couldn't fight him. People wondered what was going on. This young man has balls. The guy immediately took his hand away and told him to let it go. He'll let it go this time. But don't let it appear in front of him again. Heck replied that he appreciated his kindness. The kid at this time was screaming that he was in pain. The bad man is scaring him. Heck walked up to Cheon and said the scary man is gone. Now there is no need to be afraid. Cheon asked with tearful eyes, gone? And who is this guy? Heck introduced himself and said he was from the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy, Yeonjo County. He heard that his friend Taran was here. Cheon was immediately startled and said that it was a senior disciple. A senior apprentice of the Dragon and Tiger Martial Academy. Heck replied that it was correct. Cheon starts saying that big brother Taran is scary. He punishes. He's a painful hitter. Taran's dad is scary too. Cheon will be punished for that too. Cheon said he needed to apologize. It's scary when an older brother punishes. Taran will be punished too. Heck tried to tell him to calm down. Nothing will happen. Heck immediately thought, what kind of rumors was he spreading about him here? Cheon had been bowing and apologizing the whole time, and then Cheon was beaten up again. The man said that how dare Cheon eat all the dumplings if he had no money? Jiren replied that he was in pain, and he wanted tasty dumplings. The man raised his hand to hit, and said that retards like him need a good lesson in manners, and that's when someone yelled at him to stop. And stop doing that, and he would pay for everything. Taran sat down at the table with the boy and told him not to eat so fast. After all, he might get indigestion. Cheon was surprised and asked, indigestion? Taran replied that it was like that. What would he do if his stomach started to hurt? At that moment, Cheon thought for a moment. Taran thought for a moment and asked, what is it? Is there something on his face? Cheon asked. Is Taran in pain? Taran asked. Is he talking about the wound? It's nothing, so don't let him worry. Taran told Cheon he could tell him. But don't let him tell anyone else. The truth is, it's complicated. Heck asked Cheon, the underground arena? Cheon replied that Taran fights and makes money. He carries boxes and makes money. With that money, he buys Cheon dumplings. Cheon and Taran, they're both dragons. He can't tell anyone about this. But a senior apprentice can. Heck asked him how he knew he was that senior student. Cheon replied that the Dragon and Tiger Academy has a white and blue uniform. The senior apprentice is 182 centimeters tall. Taran gave him a red hairband. Heck saw that he looked like a fool, but he has an excellent memory. He could probably remember things he'd only listened to once. Cheon said that Big Brother was alive and he would definitely be back. Hek asked if he knew when and where the underground arena was organized. Cheon replied that it was always when there was a full moon and a new moon. If he went to the mountains, someone would guide him. And then Hek realized at once that it was today. Hek immediately noticed someone suspicious entering the establishment. The waiter immediately greeted him, but the guy immediately pushed the waiter away and told him to stay out of his way and called him a parasite. And then a few warriors approached Hek's table. They all understood why they had come. The boy asked Hek, was it him? Is he the one looking down on the blood curse gang? Cheon immediately started saying that this was a bad man. He immediately started insulting them all, which made the warriors blush. Hek thought and spoke. He didn't expect that idiot to seek him out again. He thought he would be too embarrassed to be defeated by a student of just a martial arts academy, and he would sit quietly. The guy asked, where had his confidence disappeared to? Hek realized he was a lot more cowardly than he thought. He knew this was the territory of the Blood Curse gang. It would be hard to tangle with him here. But there were too many people watching them to deal with them quietly. The warriors wouldn't listen to Cheon's insults, and tried to hit him from behind with all their might to silence him. And then Hek yelled to Cheon that he was bad. That's not right. Everyone was immediately surprised and the guy stopped. Cheon asked, was he being bad? Is he going to get in trouble? Hek replied that you can't point fingers and swear at someone like that. Cheon pointed his finger at the warrior and asked, isn't he bad? In his head he realized it was that asshole again. Hek replied, that's right, he's bad. But if he tells the bad guy this face, he will feel bad. Does he like it when someone calls him a fool? It's the same here. Siren said he doesn't feel bad. Cheon's a fool. Hek said he could do that then. Cheon started insulting them again and saying they were bad. The warrior got angry and said they would skin him alive. Hek realized that he could no longer inflate the problem any further. But he believes there is no other way out. And then someone from upstairs started laughing loudly and said she was apologizing. She didn't want to eavesdrop. She said that Hek is quite funny. The warrior immediately told the girl to mind their business and insulted her. And then the warrior turned to the mistress. The girl asked him, do I have to? And then she agreed and told him to do whatever he wanted. She told him not to be too harsh. There were people in the middle eating. The warrior replied that it would be done. Hek remembered in a moment that this guy was the cabman he had seen during the day. The warrior immediately asked the cabman what he could do. Doesn't he know who they are? But then the guy told the guy in charge to wait. The chief replied not to try to stop him. Today, all kinds of pissed off rats just keep coming at them. The guy was thinking at this moment. For some reason he seemed familiar. Where had he seen him? The head asked Carrier how he dared to pry into a warrior of the Blood Curse gang in Yuna County. The carrier immediately covered his mouth with his hand. The coachman asked the head of the warriors, did he dare speak ill of the young mistress? Normally he would have ripped out his tongue and taped it down his rotten throat, but the mistress was attentive to the others. Thanks to her, he left his corpse clean, so be sure to let him thank her in the other world. The cabbie immediately undertook his energy, and slowly began to suck out this guy's energy. Hek at this moment saw that he had only concentrated the bone tendon splitting technique on his upper body. It wouldn't hurt so much to just rip out his tongue. And then the head died in front of their eyes. The coachman told the others that it was wise of them not to attack him. Do they happen to know who he is? And then the warrior bowed and replied that they respectfully greeted the owner of the Rakshasa sword, Ma Yenji. The cabman smiled and said that was how they knew. The warrior replied that he had seen him from afar 2 years ago, when he was there on behalf of the Iron Blood Battalion, and apologized for not recognizing him right away. The cabman said then the guy should know well what it means to inconvenience the person he's escorting. The warrior replied that they had committed a serious offense. They didn't know they had such an important one around them. It was a mistake. May he have mercy on them. The girl told Yenji to stop. He could stop. After all, thanks to them, she was able to laugh. If Yenji punished them for such a trifle, she would be angry. He already killed the one who insulted her. Isn't that enough? Yenji understood and apologized. The girl said there was no need to apologize. She said she was a bloody curse gang. Let them know they were spared because those two managed to entertain her. Because, she thinks, it's better if he doesn't bother them anymore. What do they think about that? The warriors replied that they had heard everything. From now on and for the rest of their lives they would never be disturbed again. The girl replied that it was fine. Now rather let them take care of the corpse and get out of her sight while she was in a good mood. Hek stood up and thanked her as well, for because of them they were able to avoid trouble. They would go now, too. The girl was surprised and asked, "Are they leaving already? What a pity." She hoped they could have tea together. Hek immediately saw that she was using 1,000 enchanting eyes. Hek apologized and replied that unfortunately he already had important things to do that evening. The girl was immediately surprised and realized that he was not enchanted, although he was looking directly at her 1,000 enchanting eyes. And then Yenji asked him where they were going? The young lady asked him to have tea with her. Hek replied that, and he said no. Yenji asked him how dare he. Immediately he saw that the boy was not so simple a student. At this time in the Murema Alliance, the 10th young master Te was writing a letter to someone. Then someone told the gentleman that it was Sol de. Day replied that he should come in. Seal walked in and said that he welcomed the young master. Day told Sol that he says that every time. He's only a slacker who doesn't even have responsibilities in the alliance. Such courtesies don't suit him. Seal said that Te was still the grandson of the head. Day replied that his grandfather is the head of the alliance, not him. Commander Seol, so expensive and inconveniencing him. Murim Sol, the commander of the Second Alliance bodyguards, said that he apologizes. Let him realize that it is difficult for him to fulfill his request and drop all formalities. Day said it was easier to talk to the statue than to ask him. But one can go further and asked Sol why he had come. Sol replied that senior patrolman Mujan had arrived at the alliance. He asked for any news about her. Tae rejoiced and asked where she was. Seo replied that she had gone straight to the patrol hall. Before Seo could say anything further, Day ran straight away and left her picture. Seo realized that he was very excited. At this time in the patrolman's quarters, Mujuin received a letter denying her transfer. Mujuin immediately turned to the secretary. She asked what exactly does that mean? The secretary realized that he was now out of the spirit, and tried to explain to her that she had been turned down. Gamwa asked the secretary, "Does he really think she can't read?" She asks because it doesn't make sense. She had returned after investigating questionable circumstances in the western region. Moreover, she brought a letter from the Boundless Mansion and even a recommendation from a gang of beggars. She makes room in the northern region, which is constantly fiercely fought over, and wants to go to the western region that everyone avoids, and yet she's turned down? The secretary replied that Elder Woon had said that it was not the time to change servants. Gumhwa asked that he thought she was completely stupid. The Murim Alliance has never had a special time for this. Gumhwa told him to forget it. No point in arguing with him, someone else is responsible for that. Let's move on, Papa. Popa asked her if she was giving up. Gumhwa replied that she would personally find one Bij's grandfather. Gumhwa got angry and said, "Who is she dodging? She will go herself, Popa can rest." The secretary immediately realized that things were bad. The elder told him to take care of it completely. But what could he do? And that's when Day met Lady Hua. Gamwa was surprised and immediately shouted Barti Kawun. Day said he missed her. Gamwa immediately didn't hug him and ran away, saying they would talk later. She's a little busy right now. Tay caught up with her and asked her where she was in such a hurry. Was she in some kind of trouble? Would he offer to help her? Gamwa asked. Did Grandpa Woong make you do that? To try to hold her back. Gu was surprised and asked with Elder One. Did something happen to him? Did it have something to do with patrolling? Gamwa replied that she didn't have time right now, so don't let him follow him. Day apologized and replied for her to forgive him. Day wondered when she'd visit him, how she'd handle things. Maybe they could chat while enjoying their favorite sugar-coated fruit or candy. Gamwa replied that they would talk later, and then Day remembered how Gamwa had tasted sweets as a child and said it was so delicious. And asked what it was. Day asked, has she never heard of sugar-coated fruits? Is this the first time she is trying them? Gamwa asked him, does he eat them every day? Tay replied that's correct. Not such a big deal. Gamwa then said that she would marry him. Day was surprised and asked what was she saying? Gamwa replied that if she was with him, she could eat sugar-coated fruit every day and not have to go through her father's rigorous training. Day says no one gets married for something like that. Of course, he doesn't say he doesn't want to, something like that should be done later when they're older. Mujan said to the head of Mensak that didn't he think they were well suited for each other? Mensen replied that Gamwa was his bride. That would be a great blessing for his son. Mujan said then his best wishes, matchmaker. Mensak said Mujan talks as if they are, indeed, matchmakers. He's so impatient. They remembered that when they were younger, it was much easier to spend time together. Since when did they become so distant, Mrs. Gamwa? Gamwa was very angry at this time and told the old men to wait for her. She would surely get to Gansu. Yenji told Hek that he must be pretty confident in his abilities since he was showing such courage. Hek replied that he would be extremely grateful if he thought of him that way. Yenji immediately grabbed his blade. The girl immediately told him to calm down. If he acts like this, it will seem like she is begging. He said he had things to do, let Yenji leave him. Hek thanked her again. If he ever got the chance, he would definitely have tea with her. The girl asked. At least he could give his name and say where he was from? Hek replied that his name wasn't worth such an important person wasting time memorizing it. The girl asked, shouldn't they introduce themselves since they were going to have tea the next time they met? Maybe she should do it first. Her name is Cole Jean, and then Hek thought, hearing her last name Cole. Yenji told Hek, if he dared to make Madame repeat it, he would kill him despite her order. Hek replied that he couldn't die at that age. His name is Hek from the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy in Yangzhou. Jean said she was glad to meet Master Hek. She hopes his business is going well. We'll look forward to seeing him again. Jean asked Yenji, is he sure he can kill him? Yenji asked if he should go after him and kill him. Jean replied that he doesn't have to. She wouldn't want him dead. Yenji immediately realized that the lady was born with legendary white eyes of distortion that could see through everything. And if she says that, it means he's much stronger than him. How can some redneck from a martial arts academy be like that? Hek remembered that the girl with the surname Cole, who was accompanied by the sword-wielder Rakshasa from the Iron Blood Battalion. The great iron-blooded emperor, Cho Gunsong, was known for loving one woman. But it is said that his wife died early of an illness, and his only son died during the Great Righteous War. That means she is the granddaughter of the great iron-blooded emperor. Even the Alliance doesn't know about her. Does that mean he's been hiding her all this time? It must be because of her skill. Shingija said that according to the legends, when a person with legendary white eyes of distortion was born, the world would come to suffer. Hek remembered that old man Shik had mentioned that her existence was dangerous. Should he kill her? What an unnecessary thought. Hek slapped himself in the face and said, he swore he wouldn't meddle in Alliance affairs anymore. Why on earth would he care? He should be concentrating on finding Taran. Hek told Sheeran that he would take him home. Siren asked his older brother, is he crazy? Hek said no. Sheeran replied that his brother hit himself, then he was definitely crazy. In the chambers of a Murim Alliance elder, the servant told the senior patrolman that she shouldn't do this. The elder is not in his chambers at the moment. Gamwa asked, who's even outside at this hour? Move aside, she'll check it out. Gamwa immediately swung the doors open and shouted to Elder One. At this time, Elder Woon tried to escape through the window. Gamwa asked him, does he escape through the window to avoid meeting her? Woon replied that of course not. She had been dear to her since she was a child. He had definitely heard that she wanted to visit him while he was away, so he hurried back through the window. Gamwa said she would believe his lies for now. Woon started laughing and asked what lie? What had happened? Barely half an hour had passed since she arrived at the Alliance. Gamwa said she was sure he already knew why she was here. Why was her transfer request denied? And then Woon tried to answer that the point was. But then Gamwa interrupted him and told him not to say anything about the time for transferring employees. She had never heard of the Alliance setting aside time for that. Woon immediately thought that she was a rascal. She came with a firm intention. She won't back down. One turned to her and said that he just can't understand. The northern region is a key post for the Alliance, a great place to work quietly. In addition, the western region had become a staunch center of traditional force, the Iron Blood Battalion, while Kantong's school, one of the 4 traditional schools, was forced to close its doors. Because of the location of the borders, the strength of the Empire's army is much larger than the Alliance's, so it's quite difficult to support their men when needed. Woon asked what she needed in a place that everyone was avoiding. Gamwa replied that indeed, wasn't it strange? Someone wants to go to such a place, shouldn't the alliance welcome them with open arms? Not turn them away? Gamwa asked, so why? Is there another reason? Woon got scared and asked her what she was talking about. Gamwa replied that for example someone insisted that Mujan Gamwa was only in the northern region. Woon wondered what she was talking about. Or was she implying that someone had pressed the Council of Elders for such a matter? Gamwa made a look of surprise and replied that indeed, who would dare? She doesn't know who it could be. But it must be someone very important. Woon was thinking at this moment, should he tell her the truth? She seems to have already figured it out. She has such a keen sense of intuition, even though she's young, it's frightening. And then Mujuin came in and said it was him. He was the one who had pressured them to keep Gamwa in the northern region. She hadn't expected to see him here. Gamwa immediately turned around and saw that the head had come. Mujuin said he hadn't seen her face in a long time. His daughter. She's grown so much in all this time. You can't even recognize her. Mujuin said she's still the same. Rude to the alliance officials. Woon laughed and said he didn't know Patriarch Mujuin was still in the alliance. Mujuin apologized for the sudden appearance. It was probably because his daughter had been rude to him in a hurry. One replied that not at all. To the Patriarch, everyone is welcome here. He would offer tea, but he felt he should not interfere with their conversation. He would go, and hoped they would be comfortable. One realized that everyone in the alliance knew they had a strained relationship. He shouldn't stay here. Gamwa immediately told Elder Woon that she wasn't done yet. Woon ran away and replied that they would talk later. Mujuin told his daughter that she was being disrespectful to an important man of the alliance. Let her not forget that she is his daughter and the face of the Mujuin clan. Gamwa replied that honor and respect made him ignore the oath and press the elders, a member of the alliance Murim, not to interfere with the duty of subsidiary schools or clans to ensure the fairness of the middle schools. The senior patroller or the top person is forbidden to use communication for their own purposes. If her actions are not honorable, then his are illegal. That's an abuse of power. Mujuin's response was too strained. Mujuin says she is his daughter. He has no obligation to the alliance. And yet she says her opinion of his child's foolish decision is illegal pressure. Gamwa replied, one of the 10 strongest experts, a sword god, the patriarch of the Mujuin clan, the greatest of the 8 great clans. Is he really denying that he doesn't know the extent of his influence? Mujuin replied everything he does is for her good. Gamwa got angry and said that again. It is not for her, but for his own power and greatness. It's always been like this. He controls his life, using its goodness for justification. Uncle Sungyu and Wai's brother lived peacefully, and he was afraid they would fight over her legacy, which she didn't even want. Was their exile for his good? He will make his friend's father beg for mercy on his knees, reasoning that the difference in position is too great. Popa was beaten and locked up for 10 days, simply because she bought her one candy bar that she made a fuss about. Mujuin replied that she didn't understand because she was still young. Their Mujuin clan are the descendants of King Yang. Those with royal blood should not be among the common people, they should strive for the highest. Gamwa replied that she never wanted it, nor did she realize it. But since they were already here, she would say it for the last time. So far, she hadn't given up on the name Mujuin and her respect for him. He had brought her into this world and raised her. If he doesn't want to see her drop everything and disappear, let him stay out of her business. Gamwa went to the residence of the chief patrolman of the Murim Alliance after the conversation. Gamwa told Popa that they were leaving. Popa asked her what was wrong with her. Was she crying? Who dared to do that? And then Gamwa answered that it was the patriarch. Gamwa told her to get ready. She doesn't want to stay here. Popa asked, what about the transfer? Gamwa replied that she had earned the right to ask for the head of the alliance, as a reward for her time in the demon extermination order. It would seem like she was using a powerful man, but since her father was cheating, it couldn't be helped. And then Popa thought and realized that she had mentioned to the clan about the transfer. They had been watching her actions and would have found out anyway. But she hadn't expected the patriarch to make a move. Who knew he could get in her way? And now Mistress is going to take that chance, and it's all because of her. Popa apologized to Madam and said that she really was. And then Gamwa asked, she is not her side, right? Popa asked, she asks what else? She can always count on her more than anyone else. Gamwa replied that it was enough then. Now she has only her Popa. Popa thought that the patriarch was heartless. She felt very sorry for her. What to do? At this time, in Yunha County deep in the Yangchun Valley, a battle between warriors was taking place in the battle arena. Hek was there too and saw that melee combat without weapons and without using internal force. Amazing popularity for something so simple. Among the spectators there are both local and officials. So the government turns a blind eye to it. And then the guy turned to Hek and said he didn't think he'd ever seen him here before. And who did he bet on? Hek replied that he decided to look first. He asked the guy if he came here often. The guy replied, of course. This is his joy, he works hard to come here. Hek asked, do people die in these fights? Guy replied that he wouldn't say that happens a lot, but there are times when the fight gets tougher and results in death. Hek asked, what happens to those who measure up? The guy was surprised and replied that how would he know? He just felt sorry for them. Hek showed the photo and asked if he had seen a similar fighter. The guy got scared when he saw the photo and said, isn't that a flower ghost? And then Hek realized he knew Taran, the master of Yangchuan Valley, Shigongping, used to say to eat white and eat black. The boys immediately came up and asked the master if he had called them. She asked if their guests could come into the arena with a sword. The warriors immediately answered the lord that no. She asked them, then what about this guy? And he pointed his finger at Hek, who was recognizing information. She immediately told them to get rid of whoever was on the way out today. The boys replied that it would be done. She said that this man has shown no interest in fighting, he just goes around asking people. He wishes to know who he is, let them bring him to him. If he was suspicious, they would have to kill him. Hek asked the guy, flower ghost? The guy replied that's exactly what it was. The flower ghost. He's seen every fight he's ever had. He might be the first one to bet on him. He has a beautiful face like a flower, and his resilience in battle made him a ghost. Few people bet on him because of his looks. Because of him, he was able to make a fortune. But now that he has become more popular, the stakes have dropped a lot. The guy asked Hek, did he come here for him? Hek immediately replied, that's right. The guy said maybe for nothing. He doesn't know why. But for the last 6 months he hasn't been out fighting. Everyone was happy to see the birth of a new champion. The guy immediately looked at the fight and shouted to the purple ghost. And then he lost, and the guy had bet so much on him. The guy was yelling at him to get up. After all, he would lose a lot of money that way. Hek realized that it looked like his brother hadn't died in the battle. But then Hek felt someone heading toward him. The stranger apologized for disturbing him, and said they were asking him to come with them. Hek asked, is there a problem? Black M immediately said for them to look at him. A normal person would be nervous if they were surrounded like this, and he was still calm. Neither his aura nor his appearance looks like a martial artist. Maybe he's just a fool, or maybe there's someone behind him. Black M said that the master of the valley wishes to meet him. Hek said how fortunate. He wanted to ask him some questions too. He would go to him himself. Black Yum said, what nonsense? And then they were surprised because they noticed that the guy had disappeared and asked where he had gone. Master Si looked at them and asked what they were doing there. He turned to M and told him to go and see. What is wrong with M? She didn't hear back and wondered if he had heard him. When he turned around, he saw that M was just standing there. Si thought, did he cause him to become paralyzed? When had he done that? And who is it? And then Hek started pouring himself some wine, and said that they had some pretty good drinks here. The battle arena must bring in a lot. Si was surprised and asked who the hell is he? Hek replied that the head asked for it, and here he is. So why is he asking who the hell he is? Hek said that he didn't expect the head to be so rude to a guest. Yangchuan Valley host. Sia thought, when did he get here? He didn't even notice that he had paralyzed Mbek who was standing nearby. There's nothing he can do against such a master. She said that he paralyzed his subordinate and still demands hospitality. Hek replied that that was correct. Si was thinking at this point, what kind of man is he? Hek said that he wanted to ask him something anyway, so he would thank him for the invitation. He just wants to have a quiet conversation. Don't just stand there. Come and sit down. Si said that he had seen a lot of things in his life. Hek said that was fine. And it was okay to talk, just like C wanted, and then she shouted to Hyuk that he was already here. Stop messing around there, let him come here to them already. Black M thought to himself when the guy had time. C told him to grab some good alcohol and snacks along the way. He may be a much greater master than he appears, so carefully let him prepare. C asked Hek what exactly was his purpose? Why was he asking questions? Hek replied that he got right to the point, he liked it. Hek showed the picture and said he was looking for someone. From what he understood, he was a fighter here. And then C remembered how this guy was brought to him, and he asked the guy in charge, "What's this all of a sudden?" The head asked she if he was the one he recommended. She replied that was correct. He is a fighter of their arena and is gaining fame. If it's not a serious case, he can pay damages. Within reason, of course. The guy replied that he was going through the cargo. They suspect he might be a spy. The boys said he was telling them. The package had fallen apart, he was just checking it out. The boy turned to the master of the valley and said that he asked him to tell him. He had never seen the contents. He only wanted to protect the goods. C replied that it was no luck at all. It was none of their business. He said he needed money, so they introduced him to them. Whether they torture him or kill him, let them do what they want. But not from their employees. He's sure he can find another popular fighter. Thought I'd take care of him. Seemed like a goose that lays golden eggs, but he's just another turd. Since that day, they cut off all business with them. Even they lost the trust of the Iron Blood Battalion, their reputation severely shaken. C replied that it was a familiar face. He was quite popular in the arena for a while. But about half a year ago, he suddenly disappeared. It was right before a serious fight, so the losses were huge. C asked, and what's his connection to him? Family? If so, he'd like to continue the conversation about the damage. Hek replied for them to stop if they don't want to die. Hek realized that C was lying, even though there was some truth to it. So he wasn't going to share the information. Hek grabbed his sword and said that just as he thought, violence was the only solution. And then Black M came over and said that he had brought drinks and snacks as he had asked. C told him to put the food here and fill his glass. Be sure to let him take care of the guest as well. Black M poured Hake first and simultaneously poured poison into the glass so they could deal with this master. C I asked Yem, did you prepare everything properly? Black M replied that it was a top-level poison that disperses chi, besides being odorless and tasteless. After drinking it, he would be no stronger than an ordinary person. C thought it was very good. So we just have to wait for him to drink it. C said that whatever it is, he told him everything he knows. Even he doesn't know where or what he does. She remembered and told Black M that he was in charge of the fighters. Right. Does he know where that person is now? Yem replied that it looked like Jongtrin. How would he know where he is? They haven't even looked for him for a month. Just then, Hek sniffed his drink and told them to stop. C and the guard were surprised and asked what was wrong. C thought, has he guessed it? No way. Even a trained dog wouldn't smell the remedy. Hek immediately replied that this drink smells so amazing. She said that the wine is of the highest quality straight from Shanxi. It has an exquisite flavor with a slight note of sweetness.